Hello friends, this is your friend back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto was banished by Konoha and became a godlike shinobi with femme Kyuubi harem? Episode 3. If you like this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments. Now, Naruto's return is getting closer, his godlike powers continue to evolve, and Konoha has no idea what kind of legend it created the day it cast him away. Now, let's start. Naruto_'s house. Usually, a morning in Naruto_'s house is a pretty quiet one, with both of his kids having breakfast, their parents watching over them, talking between themselves and amongst themselves, after which Yasaka and Masamune go play outside under the watchful eyes of Matabi and Yugito, whilst Naruto usually goes on a morning training routine, with Kurama, with the help of her own shadow clones, cleaning up the house and going to the town_'s school, where she often helps out with teaching kids. Naruto, after his morning training, would head to town as well, checking things out there, along with catching up with Tazuna, Tsunami, Inari, folks in general, and, of course, with some of his closest friends that have moved to neutral and peaceful land of Wave to live after Mizu_'s civil war. During his time as first mercenary for hire, and later on a legitimate soldier, commander and supporter of Ieyasu Tokugawa and his faction, Naruto has made himself many lifelong friends, establishing lasting friendships and bonds with people around him. By the time the war had ended, Naruto could _Vey said that he knew practically all of Mizu and half of it was in his friends list. And two of Naruto_'s closest ones also now lived in Wave, and in the mission that he had accepted from Tsunade, he will need their help. But, back to the morning and breakfast, where Naruto_'s family has gathered, along with Karen, Kurenai, Anko, and Tsunade, with them immediately noticing two kids, who already bid their greetings to Kurama, Yugito and Masamune. "Ah, you two my little cuties, Eren you happy to see your Ba-chan?" Tsunade said with a fake sad tone, with both Yasaka and Masamune already running and hugging their beloved Ba-chan, while Kurama and Yugito playfully admonished Tsunade for this act. "Ah, how I _Vey missed you too, my little rascals. Ya-chan, Ma-kun, have you missed your Ba-chan?" "Of course, Ba-chan. Ma-kun and I are really happy to see you," Yasaka said with a smile, with Masamune smiling and nodding eagerly, with Tsunade hugging her grandkids even tighter. Naruto, I just noticed that while your daughter seems pretty talkative, your son on the other hand, Kurenai, having witnessed the morning exchange of words in the family, decided to ask something that bugged her out a bit. Masamune is fine, Kurenai, he simply likes to speak when he has something to say, as Yugi-chan said to me. According to her, my son is too smart to waste words for something that people already know about him or something obvious. Naruto said to Kurenai, who nodded to this one. I think he gets this one from me. I was the same way when I was his age, wasn't _ti. Now that you mention it, you were like that too. Kurenai nodded to this, turning her gaze towards children, as the two made their way to Kurenai, Anko and Naruto, looking curiously at the former two. "Papa, are they shinobi like you?" Masamune asked, curiously looking at smiling Anko and Kurenai. "They look pretty strong." Both Kurenai and Anko both blinked at this one with smiles, while Naruto kneeled before his kids to speak to them. "Yasaka, Masamune, remember a couple of weeks back I told you about my past, and about two very strong and very kind women that took care of me, about my two big sisters?" Both kids nodded to this one, with Naruto smiling to them rising up. "Now, I would like you two to meet," said the big sisters of mine. "This is Kurenai Yuahi and Anko Mitarashi, my two big sisters and two of my closest friends in Konoha that I had at the time when I was your age." Naruto gave way to both women to look at them with smiles. "Hi, little munchkins, I _Anko. Anko introduced herself. Wow, Naruto-kun really wasn't kidding saying that you are cute. You two look almost delicious enough that I could eat you both up in one go. Mama said that people don't eat other people, because it is bad for the stomach and is also very bad manners. Yusaka remembered, with Anko chuckling at this one, moving closer to them both. Your mom is right on this one, Munchkin. Anko said to Yusaka with a smile, then looking at Masamune. So, Blondie, do you have something smart to say? You know, you look practically like a copy of your dad here, though his hair used to be of a brighter tone, but yours are also pretty. And you also have a very pretty color of hair. Masamune said, with Anko grinning and blushing up. Papa said that it reminds him of some beautiful flowers. He was right, it kinda reminds me of violets Mama Kurama likes. Anko blushed up at this one, bringing Masamune close to her and hugging him very tightly. Ah, you are just so little and cute, and already know all the right things to say to a lady. Kawaii, Anko stated, hugging Masamune closely, nearly suffocating him, while Kurenai and Yusaka exchanged words. Mama said that you and this violet lady took care of Papa when he was very little. Is that right? Yusaka suddenly asked Kurenai, who nodded to her. Yes, I took your father in when he was very little, around your and Masamune's age. He is like a son or a little brother to me, so I hope that we can get along. Kurenai said with a hopeful smile, with Yusaka smiling at her and nodding. If Papa is like a little brother to you, then you are like an aunt to me, Auntie Kurenai. Yusaka simply said with a smile, while Kurenai chuckled at this one, while Yusaka suddenly bowed before her. Thank you for taking care of Papa for Mamas. Kurenai almost lost the gift of speech at this one. And no problems, it was nothing too special for me and Anko. Kurenai stammered a bit, with Yusaka looking up at her. Well, if you didn't take care of Papa, he and Mama wouldn't meet, and they wouldn't later have me and Ma Ni-san, that's what Mama and Papa said to me. Yusaka said to Kurenai, who looked at Naruto and Kurama, who both simply signaled to her to go with it. Well, I wouldn't go that far, but still, thank you. You are a very nice girl, Yusaka. Kurenai said to her with a smile, with Yusaka smiling at her as well. Say, did your parents tell you what shinobi are? I don't know much about shinobi, but Mama says that Papa is a very strong shinobi. She says that Papa is one of the strongest shinobi in the world, and that Ba-chan is the strongest lady in the world and the best healer, even better than Papa. Yusaka simply answered her. She once asked me if I want to be a shinobi myself one day. And what did you answer? Kurenai was genuinely curious on this subject, interested in Naruto kids and wanted to go his way. Do you want to be a shinobi, like your Papa and Ba-chan? Yusaka didn't wait for the answer. Nope, I don't want to. This answer brought a look of surprise from both Kurenai and Anko. Mama and Papa say that shinobi fight a lot of bad people, but I don't like fighting, because it gets people bad and hurt. But I really like how Papa and Ba-chan help people and heal them, so I want to be a healer, like Ba-chan. She is both very strong and can heal people, so I want to be like her. Ah, Ya-chan, you want to cry with pride. Tsunade sniffed, taking away the lone tear coming from her eye, as she hugged her granddaughter from behind. So sorry, Kurenai, but Ya-chan is already taken as my future best apprentice and successor, so back off. I don't take kindly to people trying to steal my apprentices, especially my own granddaughter. Tsunade made it clear that day that she was deadly serious on this subject. Of course, Lady Tsunade. Kurenai simply gulped at this one. Alright, kids, you two get to know your new aunts here, while Ba-chan and I will head to town. We have some things to take care of in town, but I promise that we be back soon. Naruto kissed the forehead of his daughter and ruffled his son's hair, before Yusaka suddenly stopped him, pulling back his pants. Yusaka, what's wrong? Papa, can we not play outside today? Yusaka suddenly asked him in a bit of a meek and somewhat frightened voice. There are a lot of people out there and they feel bad. This last bit surprised Kurenai and Anko, but not others here. Our little Ya-chan here is a censor, much like me. Karen answered for everyone, sipping her coffee, after a tough night of healing the idiots outside. In her age, I too already had developed the ability of sensing others, though little Ya-chan seems to be an even better sensor than me here. Naruto nodded to this one, confirming what Karen just said, though she did forget to mention that unlike most of the other sensor types, Yusaka also could sense other people's emotions and feelings via a powerful empathy. This was something very unexpected when Naruto and his family first realized it, but Kurama was surprised the most when she found out about it. The humanoid Biju explained to her beloved and his wives that she herself possessed a powerful empathic ability, capable of sensing other people from dozens of miles away from her when she wished. It would seem like Yusaka had inherited Kurama's ability and it may they even activated when she was but an infant. The proof to that was the fact of Yusaka reacting accordingly to various emotions that she sensed coming to her, clinging closer when in mother's loving embrace, laughing when with Matabi, quietly smiling with Yugito and more. There was no hiding anything from her, and Naruto understood that well, and he was actually really proud of his girl for taking control over that ability, with Kurama's guidance. And, unbeknownst to most, he was secretly glad and relieved that Yusaka didn't want to pursue a life of a shinobi for herself, instead taking the path of a healer. When he was young, all that Naruto could think of was becoming a Hokage, which meant becoming a shinobi himself. He was so naive and foolish, all he wanted was just to be recognized and respected, and since Hokage was the most respected and loved person in the village, it was clear, in young Naruto's mind, that he would need to be a Hokage so that others would start treating him with respect. Only years, a countless number of killed enemies and hundreds of saved comrades and friends did Naruto realize the full horror and hardship of a shinobi, the way of taking one's life to save several more. A path, littered with death, blood, treachery, immorality and more, it was a way that destroyed one's soul, if he were to give into darkness, and Naruto has walked on the line with it for many times, yet managing to not fall. He didn't want the same for his children, not really, but he would understand if Masamune and Yusaka had wished to pursue this path. He would teach them both and let them learn what that path is, not to discourage them, but to prepare them for the future. The Shinobi Academy of Konoha has done very little to nothing in preparations of their students to what really is life of a shinobi, nor did it even teach them more useful stuff, like importance of survival out in the wild or gave the basics in using weapons for close and ranged combat, aside from just kunai and shuriken throwing. Main reasons why Naruto had learned Kenjutsu and Iryo Ninjutsu were because it was a bit easier to kill your enemies with a skilled usage of a weapon, instead of wasting your chakra on elaborate jutsu, while Iryo Ninjutsu was essential for every shinobi to know at least in basics. In the heat of battle, a skilled medic is worth more than a dozen shinobi, as he can save your life through medical treatment and not just jutsu. Naruto himself at first wanted to pursue this path in honor of Tsunade, but later because he realized the importance of this ninjutsu and how it could save other people. That way, Naruto was capable of turning the tide of war in Mizu through not just being a merciless killing machine, but also as being someone who saved lives. In his own estimates, he saved about 12.491 lives during the Mizu civil war, using Kurama's chakra, hundreds of shadow clones and not sparing anything he had in him in saving lives. In the Battle of Saruga Castle, Naruto and 400 of his shadow clones saved 2.671 lives of Tokugawa soldiers and shinobi on his side. And while he may "They taken over 20,000 lives over his entire career, which would weigh down on him at times, understanding of the fact that he fought to preserve lives of more people and knowing that he personally saved those 12,000 men and women gave Naruto some peace to his soul, which would often be troubled by the realizations of your hands being soaked in blood of thousands. Naruto didn't "want the same for his kids, especially for Yusaka. She has a much gentler heart than he and she deserves better, so he would fully support her in a path of a healer and teach her what he knew, alongside Tsunade. Plus, while she may not like the idea of becoming a shinobi and kunoichi, that didn't "mean that Naruto wouldn't "make sure that his little girl wasn't "capable of obliterating any opponents and enemies that threaten her, in self-defensive purposes of course. After all, there is no law prohibiting a civilian healer and doctor to be able to wipe the floor with cage-level shinobi through using S-rank jutsu, now was there. Naruto looked at his daughter and nodded to her. Yes, Yusaka, you and Ma-kun can play at home, but just make sure not to break anything or get in your mother's way, okay? Yusaka and Masamune both nodded and ran towards the living room, with Kurenai and Enko following them, while Karen simply chuckled at this one. Her ability continues to grow stronger and stronger. I'm starting to become scared at the thought of bringing her to Konoha. It is still difficult for her to control her abilities, but she is making great progress, especially considering that she is only 4. Kurama said softly to her husband. It will be months before she can fully use her ability without trouble, but until then, I'll be there for her and make sure she never feels alone and scared. Same with me here too. Karen suddenly spoke up. Since you are coming to Konoha, I'll be sure to pay your regular visits. I could help out your wife here in training little Ya-chan with her sensory abilities, plus it is far better than just hanging out with those idiots outside, especially with that Sasuke Tem, Naruto, just why the hell you didn't finish him off, for crying out loud. Karen shouted at him all of a sudden. Can you imagine just how badly that bastard has gotten on my nerves? Since the day he learned of my heritage and what clan Uzumaki really is and what they are all about, that sleazy-looking Bishonen has been trying to get in my pants and make me his personal incubator. Even the damned council has been trying to marry me to him, and Kushina even supported them in that one. Why the hell didn't you bloody kill him? Karen demanded to know. Well, sorry about that one, Karen. I was about to turn him into ashes, but then a Sage Mode Jiraiya hit me with his Udama Rasengan, so I kinda wasn't able to kill him. Naruto sighed, as he rubbed the spot on his back where he was hit. Damn it, and that was some really great armor. A Tetsu no Kuni made order, specifically for me. Well, let S hope Masayuki 1 be mad when he gets it back for repairs. Oh, who am I kidding, he be furious like hell. Naruto simply sighed at the prospects of hearing an earful from the top blacksmith in Tetsu no Kuni. Naruto, if you really took a Rasengan, and charged with Senjutsu energy, then I should. Tsunade immediately was worried when she heard about this one, but Naruto stopped her. It's okay, Ka-chan. The armor took about 90% of damage and the rest 10 I healed up right after I teleported out of the spot. Naruto said to her with a smile. Still, to fight against another sage is not something to look forward to, though compared to Chen Stormstout, Jiraiya still has a long way to go. Isn't that the name of a famous brewer from Kumo no Kuni? Tsunade asked him. How come that good jolly fella sage, what summon does he even have? The bear summoning contract, a panda one, to be precise. And believe me when I say this, Ka-chan, that jolly fella is capable of brewing the best bear in all of elemental nations, and kicking the living hell out of you with you missing every single strike at him. Naruto simply stated, recalling his first meeting with him. Anyway, we should probably be moving now. We need to visit 2 places in town, and you need to meet a couple of people, Ka-chan. Tsunade simply nodded, as the two went to the door and exited the house. Tsunade was dressed in her usual dress-up, whilst Naruto was dressed in a black and white haori with hakama pants, made in similar to Shinsengumi fashion, with Naruto holstering a katana and wakizashi on his left hip, making him appear much like a ronin or samurai in public. As he grew up, Naruto developed a taste for traditional style of clothing and adopted it over the more modern and hip styles of dressing. With what such change was connected to, it was hard to tell, but Naruto now preferred to dress in such a way more than in a modern way, not that he would occasionally not dress in more today*s dress up. Exiting the house, Naruto and Tsunade were greeted with a sight of a small tent camp made right in front of his house, though at some distance. It has taken Shizune, Karen and Hinata to heal up everyone last night, but it was done and the group was able to set up camp right at Naruto*s doorsteps, not wanting to leave the place. Naruto could already sense the glares of Guy, who was near Lee, sitting in a wheelchair, Asuma, with his face now disfigured via a deep scar, destroying his former handsome mug, Sasuke, whose beauty evaporated with his now scarred face and missing eye and arm, and others as well. And right in front of him and Tsunade stood Gurren, who was in an argument with Jiraiya and Kushina. Okay, are you deaf or just stupid? Because Vei told 100, that Hokage will not be receiving any visitors, that Don have her permission to enter that house. And she made it damn clear, that anyone, aside from her guard, Hinata and Kurenai, can enter that place, and you Eren them, so scram. Gurren has had enough with those two already as it is in Konoha. Listen, you Orochimaru s whore, unless you let me inside to talk to my Sochi, I make sure that you are tried and hanged when we reach Konoha. Kushina threatened Gurren, who didn't take that threat well, but didn't show it directly. This is a matter of grave importance, so unless you move your crystal plane away, I make you move, got it? Then let me counter this one, pepper for brains. Gurren didn't miss the beat. You take one more step towards that home, and you become the latest example of art, a crystallized Uzumaki whore. I bet people would pay quite hefty sums to see something like that. At that one, Kushina was already prepared to unsheath her katana, when Naruto spoke up. While all of your sculptures are worthy of great praise, Gurren, I doubt that you find much success with this particular exponent. Naruto and Tsunade came out behind Gurren and looked at the pair in front of them. If memory serves me right, I told you to stay away from my house, lest you want to suffer the consequences. Are you in a hurry to die, then? Naruto casually asked them, with Jiraiya speaking up. Naruto, will you get off that high horse of yours already and pull that stick out of your ass? We are trying to protect the legacy of your father and your grandfather and granduncle. Jiraiya practically shouted at him, with Naruto not reacting to this in any way. Konoha is in your blood, and you will protect it, like it or not, so you either agree to come with us, or I could just finish what I started last night, but considering that my Ka-chan and I have reached an agreement on this question, I'll let you off easy this time. Naruto could clearly see shock upon their faces. Relax, frog fetishist, I am coming to Konoha, along with my family, so you can stop pestering me about it. However, make no mistake, Jiraiya, after everything you done to me and hidden away from me, there be a cold day in hell before I even think about forgiving you, her, or anyone in that godforsaken place. Naruto, you say it like you don't give a damn about Konoha. Jiraiya said to him, it is your home and You are correct, as I don't give a damn about it. However, I am a professional Ronin, and professionals don't let their personal feelings get in the way of completing their mission and doing their job. It is bad for the reputation in business, Naruto simply stated, seeing a questioning look on them. Why the look of confusion? I am sure you know how they made my reputation as Hanzo Hattori, right? Wait, Sochi, you mean to tell me that Tsunade, have you hired you? Like a sellsword of something. How could you fall so low as to demand payment for protecting your own home, your real family? Kushina practically shouted at him, with Naruto not even reacting to this one. Kushina, they've been stripped of everything by that place, so how else could I sustain my living, if not by using the skills and knowledge I had? And considering that I was trained, poorly and inappropriately, as a shinobi, there was no other profession for me that could support me and my family. Besides, all shinobi are nothing more than mercenaries when you think about it. They are given missions, and then paid to complete it, without asking questions about morality or philosophy of life. Naruto simply states to her as if it were a commonly known fact. The differences between me and the shinobi from villages are as such. I can choose which village to work for, while others can do so. I have a larger contracting base than most. Ronins may often be paid less money than your average jonin, but those that have mastered the way of earning their bread get paid on average twice as much as your average Asuma Sarutobi. And finally, I get to choose who are my clients, not the other way around. And this time, my client just so happened to be not Konoha or your council, but Daimyo of Hai no Kuni herself, so you too may say hi to your newest private military contracted mercenary. That statement got both Kushina and Jiraiya shocked. Daimyo of Hai no Kuni hired you. How did that happen, and, if she had a job, then why? Jiraiya was about to go on a rant, when Tsunade spoke up. Because our daimyo has decided that it's time for her to step up her game, or our village will get in a bad light. She tasked me with delivering a message to Hanzo here, who happened to be Naruto, and he agreed on the terms of contract. Tsunade simply stated to them. So from now on, Naruto Uzumaki is an officially hired Ronin, contracted by daimyo to work on her in Konoha for a specified duration of time, with a payment and other forthcoming privileges. Like it or not, but from now on, Naruto works for daimyo as her official aide to Konoha, and has an official political and judicial protection of fire court and daimyo. In other words, if you try to mess with him and his family, then you will be receiving his punishment, not mine. To think that my own grandson would stoop so low, Naruto, your father would. Jiraiya had hoped that mention of Minato would bring Naruto back to his senses, but it did the opposite. My father had wanted for me to make my own way in life, not waste my time in pursuit of other people's dreams and duties. Naruto simply answered, knowing the truth already, which Jiraiya simply took as a jab to his own pride. Your pitiful attempts at manipulations and schemes have already cost me everything, Jiraiya, so do not think I let you drag me into that hellhole once again. Find another fool to pass on your so valued legacy, and I believe that Menma has already started grasping it, so focus on him while you still can. And even if you did focus on me, there is literally nothing you could teach me, nothing of worth to me at this point, anyway. Oh really? And how about learning an elemental Rasengan, Did you know that your brother's genius has already perfected the Rasengan of Minato and taught me how to do it? Jiraiya grinned, knowing that Naruto would get hooked in a second at the thought of getting a new jutsu. How about that, my apprentice? Naruto merely blinked at this one, sighing and stepping a couple paces away from them. He raised up his right hand, and within 2 seconds a familiar-looking spinning ball of chakra formed, yet it seemed like there was fire right inside of it, giving the Rasengan a flaming look. Jiraiya, Kushina, Sasuke, Kakashi, Guy and Asuma looked at this one with shock, seeing Naruto so effortlessly pulling out an elemental variant of Rasengan. Naruto simply looked at Jiraiya with an impassive look, speaking up. Does Menma infuse fire with Rasengan through using shadow clones to stabilize the process? Naruto simply asked them. And no, he infuses wind with Rasengan, but his D does use 2 shadow clones for the process. Kushina answered in a shocked way. Sochi, when and how did you learn to do it? It took Menma years to just make his R Rasenshuriken, and why you? Kushina, do not compare Menma and me. We are completely different and probably opposite of one another, so it would be foolish to draw comparisons between us, as we were molded completely and utterly differently into who we are now. Naruto simply stated, easily dispelling his Rasentai. If you are finished, Ka-chan and I have business in town, before I move out tomorrow towards your revered Konoha. You can tag along if you want, but when I say stay away, you will stay away. Naruto and Tsunade didn't even stay to listen for their reply, as they moved towards the town, while Jiraiya and Kushina quickly followed them, and once the town was in sight, Kushina decided to speak up again. So, Naruto, what kind of business would you have in town, if you don't mind me asking? Kushina wanted to establish a dialogue with her son. Personal and professional. Naruto simply stated to her, making it clear he did not want to say any more on this topic, but Jiraiya decided to try some more with Naruto, wanting for his grandson to once again look at him with adoration. You know, if you want a lesson on how to be a professional, then maybe, Jiraiya spoke in his usual tone, but Naruto cut him off. Jiraiya, what did I tell you half an hour ago? Naruto reminded him. Don't be like that, Naruto. I am just trying to be civil with you here. Are you still mad at me for what I said all those years ago to you? Look, I may made a mistake back then, but you also have to understand that, Jiraiya had wanted to defend himself, but Naruto didn't let him. Jiraiya, if I cared about your words, I would continued being mad at you to this day, but I don't What ticks me off to this day is what you had done to me, how you and that blind fool of a Hokage had nearly destroyed me as a person. I used to think that what Orochimaru had done was horrible, but now I think I actually shake his hand in gratitude, though I would prefer to kill the man myself. Naruto caught a shocked look of Jiraiya, though he did not see it, but he knew how he looked at him, as well as a gasp from Kushina. Naruto, do you even hear yourself? You spit on the name of my sensei and our Hokage. How can you even dare to speak of him like that? This man has led our village for over half a century, through 2 wars and many catastrophes, and I will not have some disrespectful brat disrespecting his memory for the good deeds he has done to him, not even by someone like you. Jiraiya growled, with Naruto letting out an amused chuckle. All the good he has done to me, what was so good he did to me, hypocrite? Place me in an orphanage, where 2 matrons had tried to kill me before I turned 1, until they kicked me out at 3. Let Inuzuka hounds chase me around the village and chew on my flesh till my near death, so that those hounds knew how to properly hunt. Let his son nearly kill me and then take away my family in memory of it. Or how about the time when I made a friend in Yakumo Kurama, the girl so close to me, that this idiot guy thought I corrupted her and tried to kill me to save her from me, and the girl lashed out through genjutsu, leading Guy to traumatizing her body in blind rage. What did Hiruzen do? He forced Kurenai to seal her powers away, while you altered her memories, making her think she was weak her whole life. Naruto had to control his anger at that last one, as this one cut deep for him. I have more reasons to hate the 3rd Hokage than Orochimaru has lives to spare. And as for that Konoha that he led oh so wisely, I am honestly surprised that it still stands. Naruto coldly replied, as the group has finally made their way to what seemed like a mix between a police station of Wave and a big dojo, with 4 policemen, wearing white and blue uniform made of a shirt, a sleeveless jacket and pants and boots, with katanas and wakizashi strapped them. Master Hanzo, how are you today? Thank you very much for dealing with those Akatsuki scum yesterday, they saved many lives yesterday. One of the policemen said to Naruto, who merely nodded to him at this one, ignoring another look of shock from Jiraiya and Kushina. Hanzo, you they dealt with Akatsuki yesterday. Why the hell did you not tell me about it? Jiraiya, having received an elbow to his ribs, corrected himself, with Naruto replying evenly. Slipped my mind, plus I they already informed Hokage here about everything, so you can ask her about details. Naruto returned his attention to the policeman in front of him. I am here to see my friend, is he here today? Oh, yes, he is right inside, with his student and wife in tow. He decided to pay a visit, to see how the training of policemen is coming along, though his contract expired a while back. The officer said to him, opening the door before Naruto and his group. You find them inside, at a training yard, as always. Again, thank you very much for what you have done yesterday. Don T mention it. Naruto smiled to him and proceeded inside with his group, passing by the policemen and officers of Wave, all of them either greeting Naruto with great amount of respect and admiration, or bowing low to him for the same reason, but before he has done it all, Naruto made a single shadow clone and sent it further into town to find someone he needed. Okay, Sochi, who are we going to meet here? You they told me that you two have known each other since Mizu's civil war and fought together there. Tsunade asked quietly of him. We have, and, as I have stated before, he is a former Shinsengumi and one of the best swordsmen in the world, easily my best in swordplay. Along with that, Tazuna, now Wave daimyo, had contracted him with establishing, organizing, establishing and training Wave police force, officers of which you see here. Naruto informed Tsunade, who was starting to think things over, when she heard a new idea from her adopted son. Considering that Konoha police force has been effectively defunct for over 12 years, I think as a Hokage you would like an opportunity to re-establish it, with a capable contractor effectively putting it back together. What, we are here to see another one of those mercs. Kid, you really need to refresh the circle of your friends, Jiraiya admonished, but Naruto ignored him as the group entered the training yard, looking at the scene before them. On the training yard stood 4 persons, 3 fully grown young men in training garments and 1 young girl, dressed in training garments, with a tied-up light brown ponytail hair and green eyes, holding a shinai in her hands, while others held similar weapons. They stood in combat positions, and as soon as the bamboo touched the water in a fountain, the match began. The men moved to attack the girl first, with one in the right aiming at her left, one in the center to strike from above and the last one at her right. The girl didn't hesitate and moved 2 paces backwards, with strikes missing her, before sprinting right at them in full speed. In what seemed like a blur to these policemen, yet a normal shinobi speed to Naruto and his group, equal to that of a high chunin and low jonin, the girl appeared again before her enemies, going for one on her left and slashing him with her shinai on his arm in a thrusting attack. His comrades began to move towards her, and the girl moved her blade in a horizontal slash, a string one who was at the center previously, before ducking at the strike on her. In a half-seated position, she brought her blade again to her shoulder and thrust at a close range at her only remaining opponent, striking at his vital point and ending the spar. Kushina was very impressed at how well the girl had moved and stroke, recognizing the style of Hirazuki with her trained eye and wondering, who would teach the girl her age the style of Shinsengumi, while Naruto merely smiled at how far this girl has come along in Kenjutsu. That will be enough, Makoto. Well done. A calm and collected voice came filled with a kind tone and softness in it, making the visitors turn to see who the bearer of it was. A couple of meters away from the group stood a pair of a young man and a young woman. The man had short brown messy hair, green eyes and was dressed in black and yellow coat, with a green shirt underneath with red fingerless gloves above, reaching to his elbows, followed by tight black pants and dark brown high boots. He had a katana and wakizashi on his left and generally looked like a very handsome young man, yet also had an air of calm and collected mind. On his left stood a young beautiful-looking girl with red markings on her face, black eyes and brown hair, made into a ponytail with 2 strands on the sides of her face. She wears light brown clothing with black shorts and a purse at her side. She looks surprised at seeing Tsunade, who is also greatly surprised at the sight of a girl, but before either can say a thing, the young man speaks again. Do not take your defeat too close to heart. Makoto has had more time and practice to master her sword style, as well as more experience in fighting several opponents at once. However, while your combined assault was executed well in theory, in practice, you should not stick so close to each other. It limits your own maneuverability and gives more room for your opponent to strike or evade. When you hold a numerical advantage, use to encircle your opponent and strike at its different points, making sure to limit the range of movements for your enemy, as well as lesser his chance of escape and evasion. He spoke in a kind, yet teaching tone, with the men nodding to him. Now, if you would be so kind as to give us some privacy, as it would seem our guests here have something important to discuss here with me. Hi, Taiko. The men bowed before him and quickly deserted the yard, leaving Naruto and his group alone with this man, his apprentice and the young girl. My apologies for not being able to assist you yesterday, Naruto. The man spoke in a kind and collected way, turning to him and his group. The attack of Akatsuki had thrown the public into a fray, so I assisted the police and medics in recovering the injured and calming down the populace. Had you not intervened when you did, casualties would have been far greater than what we experienced, and fortunately no killed were reported. You have my gratitude for your actions yesterday, Naruto. It is nothing new for me, or you. All in the day's work, Soji. Naruto said with a smile to him, looking at the young girl. Great job on those 3, Miko-chan. Your usage of Hirazuki is almost frighteningly good. Thank you, Naruto-sensei. Makoto smiled at him, bowing before him, before looking at a surprised Tsunade Senju. Lady Hokage, it has been a long time. I am glad that you appear to be in good health. I am. Makoto Sarutobi, the reported dead genin of Team 13 under Jonin Sasuke Uchiha. Tsunade spoke in a nearly shocked voice, with Makoto stiffening at the mention of her former sensei. You were reported dead by your sensei more than a year and a half ago, killed by Iwa Shinobi in the Land of Grass. Yet, were you able to survive somehow? Not quite. My team did encounter the Iwa Shinobi, only they did not attack us. It was Sasuke Uchiha that attacked and killed them, before killing my team and nearly killing me. Konoha Shinobi paled and widened their eyes at what they heard. Naruto-sensei had found me, healed me and buried my fallen teammates, before bringing me here. After that, I became an apprentice to Soji-sensei and lived here. I apologize for not reporting back to Konoha and effectively deserting my village, Hokage-sama, but I was afraid that I would be putting my life in danger had I done so. Wait, in danger? Makoto, what do you, that arrogant prick Uchiha? Tsunade gritted her teeth as she understood what had happened there. To so openly violate laws of shinobi and all for those damned eyes of his. LL have his head when we return to Konoha for treason and murder of his own genins. Tsunade was livid at the realization that Sasuke Uchiha had murdered his own genins just to obtain Mangekyo Sharingan. Lady Tsunade, I am afraid that Konoha council will not abide by this one. For them, it will only seem like a minor loss for a much greater gain. despite how immoral it was, nor will they risk their relations with the revered Uchiha Sasuke. Spoke up a young woman to Tsunade, drawing the attention to her. Sorry for not informing you about myself for such a long time, Hokage-sama, but I was in a similar position to Miko-chan myself. Hana Inuzuka, I thought that you and 8 members of your clan had perished on your diplomatic mission to the Inamaru clan of Mizu, with only Kiba surviving. Tsunade spoke, looking very much like Hana Inuzuka, though without her Heimaru Ninken. It has been over 5 years now since the report of that mission s failure, and yet. Oh, Hokage-sama, if only you had known that your desire to let my clan s exiled cousins back was seen as a chance by my mother and most of the Inuzuka clan to completely wipe them out. Tsunade widened her eyes at this one. I was the only member of that group that rebelled against the orders of my mother to put essentially my own kin to the sword. And the other Inuzuka, including Kiba, took this as a sign of weakness. And Clan Inuzuka is merciless upon weak and supposed traitors. Flashback. 5 years and 3 months ago. Mizu no Kuni. Hana Inuzuka had always known that her clan, the Inuzuka clan, was the one where brute force, ferocity and wildness were signs of power, strength and authority. Strength was the only valid argument in the clan, and it was maintained through harshness and mercilessness towards those that didn't understand the core concept of Inuzuka's philosophy of life. Strength is the major argument in all, and it gives you the right to take all that you want. Hana knew that philosophy well, having been beaten it into her by her mother and head of clan, Sume Inuzuka, who instituted it and propagandized it in everyone in the clan, as well as asserting her own place as alpha through making the younger and older generations rival amongst each other for authority and power in clan, wished she maintained a strong position over weakened by infighting Inuzuka members. Such a system of control and power was something Hana didn't take to heart, unlike all the others, making her an outcast amongst the clan mates. She despised how her clan, once a strong pack of wolves, now turned into hyenas, squabbling amongst each other in hopes of gaining power, yet not able to obtain it. Back when Clan Inuzuka was ruled by Hana's grandfather, Otani Inuzuka, the clan was one of the proudest and strongest in the Leaf, with its members standing fast and strong for each other. However, all of that had changed when he suddenly died, rumored to have been killed in his sleep by Hana's mother to take power. The clan immediately had split into 2 factions, with little over a half standing for Sume as the rightful heir to clan and position of alpha, and the other one being led by Sume's younger brother, Hikiba, who was sure that his sister was not fit for the role of alpha and suspected that she had killed their father. All seemed like there would be a civil war in Inuzuka clan, until Sume hadn't appealed to the 3rd Hokage and council, painting Hikiba and his supporters as traitors to the Leaf and real killers of Otani Inuzuka. Hiruzen and council trusted Sume, and by his own order, Hikiba and his supporters were banished from Konoha and Hai no Kuni forever, though Sume had wanted them dead, so that there would be no opposition to her power. Decades later, and now that Mizu was in a state of civil war, with Hikiba and his own clan, now named Inamaru, participating in it on the side of Tokugawa Ieyasu. The reports have reached Konoha about severe losses in life and Ninken of Inamaru, as well as how clans Oda, Hashiba and Shibata were preparing to wipe them out. Tsunade decided to lift their banishment and welcome them back in Konoha, to strengthen the positions of Konoha and Clan Inuzuka as a whole. She had tasked Sume Inuzuka with coming up with the right group for a diplomatic mission to Mizu no Kuni, but Tsunade was far too trusting to Sume, who wouldn't have Hikiba and his renegades back. Instead of a diplomatic mission, she made a group for a cleanup operation, to wipe out the remaining Inamaru members, with Kiba and Hana being on it. Kiba was more than happy to wipe them all out, along with other members of his team, while Hana was abhorred and horrified, yet submitted to this. However, Once they reached for Mizu no Kuni and they were soon to reach the Inamaru clan site, her group and Kiba killing almost a half of clan s injured, elderly and too young, as the rest of clan was out defending the pass to their camp. Hana rebelled against the orders of her mother. That wasn't taken well by her other teammates, especially by Kiba, who was the first one to attack her and Heimaru triplets. His Gatsuga ripped through one of the triplets without mercy, killing him, with Hana horrified and shocked at how merciless her own little brother was. Her other teammates weren't any less violent and or merciful, with their Ninken literally eating away the other two Heimaru hounds, and their human partners beating her mercilessly and having their way with her body. Even her own brother, her own flesh and blood, didn't stay away from her and was even the first to violate her in that way. In several hours, Hana, wrapped, beaten to half-death and violated on more than one level, laid down on the ground and looked how Kiba pulled back his pants after finishing with her, snarling at her. "Ha, I guess you were good at something, Hana. A shame such a nice bitch has to be put down, but you know our way, sister, only strong people can live in Inuzuka, and you are weak." Kiba smirked at her, as his teammates were all ready to finish her off as well, with Hana unable to even move a muscle of her bloodied, injured and violated body. However, just as Kiba was about to deliver her the finishing blow with his own fangs, screams, whines and shouts of terror and pain filled the forest and night. Right behind Kiba and Akamaru, his group came under a coordinated attack of what seemed like samurai wearing blue and white haori, cutting their way through Inuzuka shinobi without mercy. Among them, one could see an all-black shinobi, wearing a full mask with face guard, leather armor all over his torso, shoulders, arms and legs, and black clothing on it, slashing with a katana and wakizashi at the enemies. And as for the Ninken, they were mercilessly pounded and ripped apart by similar-looking hounds and men and women of the Inamaru clan, distinguished by their blue markings on cheeks and chins. In their head, a tall man with long messy black hair and brown eyes, followed by a large white wolfhound, made his way to Kiba and picked him with one hand, while his wolfhound pinned Akamaru to the ground, not letting him come to the rescue of his partner. The man spoke up. "Your stench, you are one of Sum***s brats, Aaron **tu. Kiba only received a nod from him, which made the man snarl at him. "So this is how you Inuzuka act. Strike at our elderly, sick and babes. And then even going as far as to have your way with your own flesh and blood." Kiba smashed Kiba against the ground and ordered 3 of his clan members to hold him, as he turned to the black shinobi. "Hanzo Hattori, may I borrow your wakizashi here?" Now identified Hanzo simply nodded to him, handing him over his blade, which Kiba took immediately and walked to Kiba and knelt before him. "Your comrades and their dogs have been punished, but you will not get away with just death. It would be only a salvation for you. You mounted your own sister, beaten and violated her. In the true Inuzuka clan, there was only one suitable punishment for degenerated shits like you." Kiba snarled at him and then sent Hanzo s wakizashi to Kiba s manhood. The screams of Kiba filled the night, as Kiba implemented the punishment upon him, carving away from him one thing that made him a man. The greatest shame for Inuzuka men is to lose their manhood, the symbol of their prowess and what allowed them to mount women, to be rendered less than shit and unable to mate and spread their genes. Only 3 times has this punishment taken place in the Inuzuka clan, and each time, it was the head of clan that did it. Kiba easily carved away Kiba s member, before ripping it out of him and throwing it away, all the while Kiba had screamed out of unimaginable pain. Kiba stood up and gave his commands. "Stop his bleeding there and let that Ninken of his go with him. He ll carry the message from us to that bitch Sum and she ll know what she will get if she deals with us like that again." Kiba ordered, as one of the medics went to do so with Kiba, while he handed the wakizashi to Hanzo, but he decided not to accept it. I would rather throw it away, then use it again, Hikiba-san. Hanzo said with a disgusted tone, with Hikiba agreeing with him and throwing it away as well, while he and Hanzo moved to Hana, followed by the commander of the Shinsengumi here. What savagery, to do such a thing with one S clan member, a blood sister no less, Captain of Shinsengumi said in utter shock, while Hanzo examined her seemingly lifeless body. She looks a lot like Sum in her youth, yet there is clarity and honesty in her eyes. Such a shame, for my own blood and flesh to fall so low as to. Suddenly they all heard a sharp inhale coming from the girl. Cammy, she is still breathing. Yes, though barely. She needs help and she needs it fast. Hanzo immediately began to use his mystical hand healing. I can only stabilize her condition and support her, but she needs serious medical attention ASAP, otherwise she won't survive till nightfall. Alright, medics. Heal this pup with all you they got, she s one of us now. Hikiba commanded with a roar, as 4 additional medics went to work on Hana Inuzuka, saving her life. End of flashback. Soon after I was stable enough, I was moved to Mikawa Hospital for proper rehabilitation, where I stayed for the next 6 months. Hana ended her tale, with Tsunade, Jiraiya and Kushina looking sick and pale. After the war was over, I was offered a place in the Inamaru clan, but I turned it down and decided to quit being shinobi altogether, pursuing a medic career with a vet s as well. And, about 4 years ago, I married one of my rescuers. Hana looked with a smile at her husband, who returned it in kind. So now I am Hana Okita, Hokage-sama. Hana Okita, wait, then that means you are. Tsunade had wide eyes when she looked at the young man in front of her, who nodded to her and answered. Where are my manners? I completely forgot to introduce myself properly, Haven Ti. Lady Tsunade Senju, it is my privilege and honor to meet a medic of such renown and legend. The man made a small bow to her. Allow me to introduce myself properly to you. I am Soji Okita, former member of Shinsengumi and captain of their 1st Division, now retired, as you can see for yourself. Quote, Soji Okita. Like the same Shinsengumi swordsman that is hailed as the best sword in all of elemental nations, capable of outmatching the entirety of 7 mist swordsmen on his own. Jiraiya looked in shock at the guy before him. You hardly look past 20 to me, yet you are telling me that this scrawny kid is an S-rank Ronin, that had killed Mitsuhide Akechi and Nagamasa Azai, 2 of the world-renowned Mizu S swordsmen in duels. Rumors exaggerated my deeds quite a great deal, I assure you. I am skilled in swordplay, true, but to go up against 7 ninja swords of mist would be suicidal for me, and there are better swordsmen than me out there, like Hajime Saito and Kenshin Himura, both my dear friends and quite fearsome swordsmen themselves. Soji humbly stated about himself. As for Mitsuhide and Nagamasa, I did have the assistance of my good friend Hanzo, or Naruto, here. Ever humble himself, Aaron tu, Soji, Naruto simply shook his head at the antics of his friend. You LL never admit a clear fact about yourself, even if it s as great as those, one tu. And you didn't t even need my help out there with them, all I did was simply keep the reinforcements away, you did the job with them on your own there. Perhaps, my friend, but your help and support there were invaluable for me and our cause. Soji smiled at him. Now, do not take this the wrong way, but, would you mind telling me why do I, my lovely wife and my apprentice here, stand in the presence of 2 out of 3 Sanins and Konoha s mistress of sword and seals all of a sudden? Would it have something to do with Konoha s group suddenly invading your property last night? Soji asked Naruto in a serious voice. It would, Soji, it most certainly would, Naruto sighed at this one. I have a business proposition for you, but first I would like to discuss it with you and Hana in private, if you two do not mind. Seeing how your mother, our Hokage and former teacher of yours are here, I assume this has something to do with Konoha. Hana asked Naruto, who nodded to her, with her turning to Makoto. I wish for Makoto to also be there, if this is possible. Actually, it would be great. Naruto looked at Makoto, who nodded to him, moving closer to Naruto. Soji. Let us take this to the warehouse here, it has a good soundproofing and there we shall be able to talk without being interrupted. Naruto nodded to him, with him, Soji, Hana and Makoto going towards the warehouse and leaving Naruto*'s group here alone. Meanwhile, in the other part of town, you continue to find trouble upon yourself, Naruto. A young-looking woman with green hair made into a bun, with orange bangs on her sides, and orange pupilless eyes, dressed in an attire consisting of a sleeveless, backless top and short tight pants, with 2 lapels on the front and the back, with an obi around her waist, as well as purple arm warmers which extend up to her shoulders, and has bandages around her tights and ankles, said to Naruto with a chuckle. First the Akatsuki show up to wreck things up while I was out in Port**s market, then your old friends show up for a little reunion, followed by your Hokage, and now you are tasked with completing the most ambitious and one of the most audacious missions in history. I would envy you, but that**s beneath me. I take it Yugi-chan has spilled the beans to you already over the phone, didn't she? Naruto simply shook his head at this one, while his friend merely nodded. Well, add up to this the appearance of my mother, godfather and the guy that nearly killed Miko-chan and that violated Hana-chan, and you can imagine how my evening went yesterday. Wait, you mean to tell me that Sasuke Uchiha and Kiba Inuzuka were there too? She asked, surprised of him. I remember how pissed you were at both of them for what they had done. I'm still surprised that the dog bastard survived the castration. Well, Hikiba may punished him that way, they decided to finish him off for good. Naruto saw a look of surprise on his friend**'s face again. He and Akamaru now burn in hell for all I know. And as for that Uchiha Sab, he had a bad taste of my Enten, costing him half of his face, 1 Sharingan, burned up half of body and an arm, but that bastard has more luck than me in gambling and surviving, as Kushina and Jiraiya stepped in and saved him, goddammit. Naruto cursed at this one, with his friend shaking her head at his misfortune. Why wouldn't Itachi finish that off back then, is just beyond me, so anyway, you know what I am up against and what my mission now is. I know that asking you for a favor after all you had done for me is just ungrateful, and I will accept it if you want to stay here, but just give me a couple of hours to pack up my things and I'll be good to go. She simply said to him, surprising Naruto. Naruto, did you really think I'll leave my former student, best friend and a father of my goddaughter out on this one? I'm not going to let those vultures get anywhere close to my family and kids, and I too have a score to settle with Konoha of my own, if you recall, so I am game on this one, whether Soji, Hana and Miko-chan are coming or not. Naruto smiled back at her back. Thank you, Pakura. This means a lot to me. Naruto said genuinely to his former sensei, Pakura, former kunoichi of sand, user or scorch release and one of the heroines of Mizu***'s civil war. While usually most of the warehouses cannot be stated as being examples of cleanness and order, police***s warehouse was actually quite ordered and clean, though not a little bit cramped, with all the utilities, supplies and more stored in here. However, it had pretty good soundproofing, further enhanced by Naruto***'s soundproofing seal, put in place just to be extra safe. Considering the fact that just some 40 feet away from him stood the man infamous for peeking, possible adultery and for running a spy network, it was for the better. It had taken about 20 minutes for Naruto to lay down everything to Soji, Hana, Makoto and now he watched as they considered their options, along with reeling with a mild shock at what they had just heard, with Hana and Makoto being verbal about it, while Soji's face merely hardened at it. Most of the shinobi world thought very little of Samura's and Shinsengumi of Mizu, being convinced that they weren't in the same league as shinobi. But, as Naruto had discovered, Shinsengumi weren't just as good as shinobi, but in many aspects could outmatch them. They weren't above studying ninjutsu and learning about chakra control and manipulation of it, while also abiding to a strict code of honor. In swordplay, Shinsengumi were trained to a level that one of them could take out at least a dozen of simple soldiers, or be able to kill a shinobi without trouble, and they were capable of more than just that. Naruto had personally witnessed how Shinsengumi cut through entire battalions of shinobi with their swords, showing superior kenjutsu skills to those of shinobi. Hirazuki's style was designed for a swift execution of the enemies, while also being able to go into a defense if needed, plus Shinsengumi would be encouraged to study additional kenjutsu styles of combat, not only to gain additional skills, but also to be able to rely on more than just Hirazuki. Many members of Shinsengumi, including Soji and Naruto, had studied additional styles of kenjutsu too, suitable not just for swift fight, but also for prolonged battles. And the difference in skills, swordplay and even the philosophy of battles on swords between shinobi and Shinsengumi has been shown in full display in Mizu's Civil War. Where Shinsengumi, formerly just a militia trained in usage of chakra originating from Mikawa, had slashed through shinobi of Mizu, armies of Oda and Toyotomi and many other feudal lords, leading to the eventual victory of Tokugawa faction and Shinsengumi being recognized as national heroes and granted a status of honored guard and a main police force of Mizu. And Soji Okita was their best, having become a member of Shinsengumi at the mere age of 9, the youngest member of Shinsengumi yet, and arguably their best. He joined not because there were no better options, but because there was a civil war and his land needed protection. His family was in danger, and, considering what shinobi of Kiri were like back then, he became a member of Shinsengumi. With a sword in his hand, steel resolve and will of iron, Soji fought his way through Mizu's civil war, becoming a captain at age of 14 years. When he and Naruto had met, the two had quickly grown first to respect each other, and later on acknowledged one another as best friends, with Naruto curing Soji's tuberculosis in its early stage, saving his life. After the war was over, Naruto had decided to settle down in Wave, and Soji, who throughout his whole life knew only how to fight, decided to learn what peace was like and followed Naruto in Wave. While he would occasionally take up jobs, Soji's primary way of earning income became training Wave's police force, the endeavor in which he has succeeded quite well, though there is no preparation for 2S rank nuke nins arriving like yesterday. Along with that, living a peaceful life with his wife Hana, he also trained Makoto Sarutobi, who took to swordsmanship and ways of Shinsengumi like fish to the water. And now, Naruto has come to Soji and his family, to ask of him something he did not expect to hear of him. Taking a breath in, Soji spoke up, as his wife and apprentice calmed down. Naruto, what you ask of me, and what you are tasked to do by your mother, such a mission is impossible to complete on your own and even with my help. Soji, having analyzed everything, came to a conclusion. The moment you start to complete it, you will start a civil war within Konoha and all those that are on your target list shall fight you. You may be able to defeat them, possibly without the power of Kurama, but the casualties will be staggering, and the village will run red from blood. You understand that, I believe. Quite well, Soji. Naruto said to him with full seriousness. I know for a fact that while I personally have power equal to that of Hashirama Senju, if you count Kurama in, I am still a single shinobi up against what is essentially half of Konoha and their forces. However, Yesterday, when Tsunade had told me of this mission, I recalled Ieyasu and his plan on ending the war, the way to defeating Nobunaga, Yagura, Hideyoshi and all those other powerful warlords. I believe you also remember how we did it back then. Yes, I do. Soji recalled, before he understood what Naruto had meant to him and what was the cornerstone of Naruto's plan, though he did not show it out in the open. I see, reach for the hearts of the oppressed and lift their spirits through hope, and the will to fight for a better tomorrow shall flow into their hearts. You intend to become the fire of hope for the people of Konoha. Not all of them, Soji. Naruto assured him. Konoha is corrupt, possibly to the point when it would be best simply to destroy it, but my experience in war tells me that even in the darkest of places, there may be those whose hearts still carry light in them. And their light might just become the cleansing flame against the corrupt, but it must first be nurtured, until, Naruto made a small pause, letting out a single chuckle. Until the wolves can bare their fangs. Hana and Makoto didn't quite catch this one, but Soji understood it perfectly. Aku. Soku. Zan. Soji repeated the main principle of Shinsengumi, the core of their philosophy. Slay evil immediately. Now I fully understand why you needed me, my friend. You need not just my blade and skills, but also the teachings of Shinsengumi, to start the fires of the revolution. Hey, how ironic. Soji let out a small laugh with a smile at this one. What so funny, dear? Hana asked him, interested to know. When Shinsengumi were first founded, their primary goal was to put down a rebellion in the works. Soji told Hana with a small smile. And now, the principles that the first Shinsengumi had used to quell down the rebellion, are now going to be used to start a revolution in Konoha. An irony at its best, if you think about it. I am not insisting that you go with me, Soji. You, Hana and Makoto here have no need to go back there and Naruto, while it is nice to know that you care about us, you are mistaken here. Hana suddenly stated to him, having thought about it carefully on her own. I am deeply grateful to you for putting Kiba to the sword for all that he has done to me and others, but he is only a symptom of a disease that turned once a proud and strong Inuzuka clan into a horde of rabid mutts and a disgrace of Konoha. If you are planning on cleaning up that cesspool, I would like to be there when my mother gets what's coming to her. That is, if you, Soji-kun, are willing to go as well. Hana looked at her husband with devotion and care. I personally do not like to mix personal feelings and duty, for it blurs the line between honor and wishes for vengeance and revenge, but I believe that I can stay professional, while also fulfilling personal desire for vengeance and justice. Soji stated to Naruto, who merely smiled at this one. I would much rather prefer to deal with Kiba Inuzuka personally, considering that it is my wife he had dishonored in such a vile way. However, if we are going, then I wish to be the one to deal with the punishment upon Sume and her clan, when the time comes. Be my guest, Soji. Naruto simply agreed with him, turning his eyes upon Makoto, who was still deciding everything. Miko-chan, what are your thoughts on this one, kid? After everything that has happened, I wish for my friends' souls to rest in peace. Makoto let out a sigh. Promise me that Sasuke Uchiha will get what he deserves and some more. And that I can depend upon you, Naruto-sensei, to offer me protection from the council and my clan. That last bit surprised Naruto a little, along with Soji and Hana. That duck-butted already has a spot in hell reserved for him, and I will be more than happy to send him there. And, as I stated, if you are coming with me, you will be under the political and judicial protection of Fire Daimyo, Makoto, but why would you need protection against your clan? I can understand the council, they be more than happy to claw you up, but Clan Sarutobi. Naruto asked her, interested in what was the deal in this one. My clan is known for their exemplary loyalty and devotion to Konohagakure. That is a common well-known fact. However, what most don-t know is that Sarutobi clan laws dictate that if a Sarutobi shinobi should abandon their village and their clan, no matter the circumstances, they are to be tracked down and executed on sight. Makoto explained to Naruto, Soji and Hana why she needed protection. This is why I asked you not to give me back to Konoha, as I knew what I would be facing. In the eyes of a council, with their favoritism of Uchiha bastard, I would be a traitor, and my clan would rather sacrifice a child of a traitor than stand by her side. Child of a traitor. Soji cocked his brow upwards. Does that mean that one of your parents had left the Sarutobi clan? Soji saw his apprentice nod at this one. My mother, Hikari Sarutobi, was of Sarutobi clan, younger sister to Asuma Sarutobi and his successor as guardian shinobi. While she was serving the previous daimyo, she fell in love with one of his sons, Tatsumaru Matsudera, and they had me, in secret. Makoto told them, surprising them all at this reveal. Fire Daimyo and his family didn't really care about this, as mistresses and lovers were nothing new for royal family members, but Sarutobi clan, my mother clan is known as a righteous, diligent and loyal Konoha and its own members. And if someone steps out of the line, as they see it, then they are punished. And not even Hokage's own daughter and wife to the successor of Fire Throne is safe from it. My mother was officially made a traitor by my grandfather for the betrayal of the Sarutobi clan. Makoto said with sadness in her voice, before she was pulled into a hug by Hana, who accepted it, before continuing. When I was around 3, we were on the road to the capital, when a group of enemy shinobi attacked. The escort was killed quickly, and then, my mom was one of the best in guardians, but even she didn't last long against a group of nuke nins, and my father wasn't a shinobi. I, on the other hand, was taken to Konoha, by the man that killed my mother and his sister. Naruto and others quickly realized whom Makoto spoke of. That explains the mysterious death of Tatsumaru Matsudera and his wife Hikari, Soji quietly stated, turning to Naruto. You told me why you hated the third Hokage so much, but to go as far as to kill his own daughter and a prime candidate to the throne, bastard. Miko-chan, how did you come to know about it? Were you not 3 at the time? Soon after third death, I managed to get my hands on one of his journals, and that is how I learned about it all. Makoto simply stated, turning to Naruto. As you can see, Naruto I have more than enough reasons of my own to go back there as well. Yeah, I can see that too, Miko-chan, or should I now refer to you as Makoto Dono? Naruto joked at this one, with Makoto looking at him with a deadpan expression. What? You are a member of Daimyo family and a cousin to current Daimyo, are you not, Makoto Matsudera? Makoto simply pouted a bit at the joke, before Naruto spoke up seriously again. Thank you, it means a lot to me, guys. I promise to you, as long as you are with me, Leaf won't be able to touch us without inviting the fury of Daimyo, and if they do, then we have a full-on carte blanche to exact our own justice. That is reassuring to hear, but I am still trying to think about ways of retraining Konoha police force, considering that I be in charge at training, officially. Soji spoke up, before catching a surprise, and, strangely enough, somewhat sympathetic glances of all 3 former Konoha shinobi. Am I missing something here? Dear, the thing is, Konoha doesn't have a police force per se. Hana stated to Soji, who cocked his eyebrow up at this one. The Uchiha clan was in charge of policing Konoha and its streets, but after their massacre, well, to put it bluntly. Wait, you mean to tell me, Konohagakure no Sato, one of the big 5 shinobi hidden villages, and the one to win all 3 shinobi wars, does it have a regular police force? Soji practically shouted out in shock and disbelief. The police is an essential institution in protecting civilians, preservation of order and law enforcement, as well as prevention of crimes and destabilization of national stability, and Konoha does not have it. How in Kami's name have they been operating civilian security without a dedicated institution of civilian protection and judicial enforcement? And how long has this been going on? 12 years. About that long, yeah. And Don_T asked me about this one, but, in my personal opinion, things weren't exactly well when the police force was around. I am biased, of course, all facts considered, but, Naruto simply shrugged at it all, before continuing. But in all seriousness, the previous police force, when compared to Shinsengumi, didn't hold a candle to you and Saito, Soji. The Konoha police force was fully made of clan Uchiha, as per a decree of second Hokage, and consisted only of Uchiha, who operated as semi-independent from the Hokage office and enforced the law in their own accords. And, as an experienced policeman, you can see what such a situation could only escalate to. No wonder they had tried to rebel, according to what they told us. Soji simply let out a sigh. Alright, I'll take this job, but I will need a couple of things from your Hokage, as well as several additional instructors for this job. Hope you don't mind if I contact some of my retired Shinsengumi friends and invite them in. Just verify this with Tsunade, but she shouldn't have any trouble in this department. And as for the payment to you and your friends, if they join in, we have to verify it with her and current daimyo when we get the chance, considering that she basically had made this mission. Naruto said, as he released the seal and spoke out loud. Now, if we are finished, let s go. I'm sure that frog fetishist is dying to learn what s your decision. They went towards the doors and stepped outside, as Soji spoke up. Considering the fact of him sitting at the tree branch right above us, I believe you are correct. Soji agreed with Naruto, as he simply kicked the tree hard enough, and the branch immediately broke and fell down, along with Jiraiya, who landed right in front of Soji and everyone else. Jiraiya, as a Sannin and a spy master, your skills at infiltration and espionage are quite impressive. However, there is a good reason why Shinsengumi are also trained in said arts, along with ninjutsu and genjutsu. Say what you want. You only got lucky, that s all. Jiraiya huffed, glaring at Naruto and Soji. Besides, it's common knowledge now, that no samurai or whatever these Mizu s militiamen call themselves, can defeat a shinobi, especially one of Konoha, Naruto being an exception here. Jiraiya smirked, thinking that neither of the two here would be foolish enough to challenge him to that one, and even if they fell for it, he was still in the win. Is that so? Jiraiya dono, if you are doubtful about my skills as a swordsman and Shinsengumi as a whole, perhaps a demonstration is in place. Soji knew that he was being baited, but he couldn't refuse an opportunity of putting Konoha Sannin in his place. You arrived here with Kushina Uzumaki, Konoha mistress of swordsmanship, as well as with an Anbu Black Ops, carrying a sword with her, whom I presume to be none other than Yugao Azuki, one of the top Konoha Kenjutsu masters. A good opportunity to verify the validity of the common knowledge, wouldn't you agree, Lady Hokage? Soji, Hana, Makoto and Naruto turned to see the trio of women, with Yugao having revealed herself as well, standing there. Seems so. Tsunade agreed to this one, turning to Yugao. What do you say, Yugao? Think you can match Mizu's best swordsman? Yugao was about to answer, but she was interrupted by Kushina. She shouldn't have any trouble. Kushina answered for Yugao. After all, she was once my apprentice in Kenjutsu, so she won't be able to lose to some wannabe samurai or whatever you call yourself. I personally can take down any of your Shinsengumi with ease, along with my Sochi here. Kushina proudly stated, letting her mouth speak without thinking. Well, if you are so certain of yourself, then why not back those words with a sword, Kushina? Naruto simply stated, surprising her and Jiraiya, as he and Soji already walked towards the training ground. Wait, what did he mean by that? Kushina suddenly asked, with Yugao answering this one. I believe Naruto wishes to see if you can back those words about defeating him. Yugao simply stated, as she put away her mask and unsheathed her own sword, walking towards her opponent on the opposite end of the training field, joined by Kushina, reluctantly. Lady Hokage, what would be the terms of this challenge? Well, if that is okay with you too. She saw nods from Naruto and Soji. Then here is how you do it. 3 strikes at the vital points, and use the blunt weapons, if you have them. First to score those strikes wins. Do you have blunt katanas or something like that? Soji nodded, as he walked towards the training stands and pulled out of them 4 blunted katanas, tossing the 2 to Yugao and Kushina, and giving one to Naruto, who unsheathed it with Soji. Alright, no taijutsu, genjutsu and ninjutsu, just kenjutsu. Yugao and Okita will go first in this one. With that out of the way, Hajime. Tsunade gave the signal to the fight, as Naruto and Kushina cleared the field. Yugao decided not to waste her window of opportunity and decided to go straight at Soji, who took up a position for Hirazuki. She brought her sword to her right, going straight at him, with Soji carefully analyzing her every movement. Once she was about in near 1.5 meters, Yugao suddenly visibly split into 3, followed by afterimages, seemingly confusing Soji, though he did not show it. Soji stood in his stance, seeing how all the images disappeared, before he suddenly moved elegantly to the left side, bringing his blade upwards. Yugao landed at the spot where Soji was supposed to be standing, her eyes wide at shock that she didn't hit him. However, her shock was short-lived when Soji blunt katana slashed at Yugao back, which would have been the end for her had it been a real fight. Yugao reeled at blunt pain upon her spine, thrusting herself away from Soji hoping to gain distance from him. Once she thought that she had done so, she turned around, and just barely was able to block his thrust at her throat, interlocking against Shinsengumi's best swordsman and looking at his impassive face, betraying not an ounce of his emotions. As they interlocked, Yugao allowed herself to speak to him. How did you manage to see through my crescent moon dance? She asked him, as she moved back a little under the pressure. Your afterimages may be effective at confusing most opponents, but not someone who has been trained to constantly look at shadows. Soji simply answered her. And your shadow betrayed you this time. Soji answered to her, as he moved Yugao's blade to her right, completely exposing her for him, as he went into an attack. Bringing his blade close to his right shoulder, he thrust it at Yugao's left kidney, before bringing it upwards and slashing diagonally across her torso, finishing the fight. Yugao stepped back in pain, panting a little and putting away her training sword, as did Soji, who bowed respectfully to her. She returned the gesture in kind, walking towards the stand and returning her sword there, before taking place near Tsunade, while Soji stood near his apprentice and wife. Naruto and Kushina walked towards the training field and stood across it in front of each other. Naruto adopted the look of impassiveness, laying his hand upon the handle, preparing for an attack and defense in a Iaido stance, while Kushina drew out her katana and brought it to her chin level, with the blunt side looking down and the supposed cutting edge upwards. She didn't like the idea of fighting against her own son, and she was cursing her mouth right about now in her mind. However, if she were able to prove to him here and now that she was strong and could teach him how to properly hold a sword, then she would most certainly win over her son back. After all, Jiraiya and Kakashi did tell her that he always pestered them about training, and what better way to get back her son than by offering him the training. Tsunade sounded the beginning of the spar, and Kushina decided to be the first to go on the offensive. Naruto decided to follow suit as well, speeding from his spot where he stood initially, and closing the distance with Kushina, his hand near his blade. Kushina saw this as an opportunity for the strike, and once the distance was closed between them, went into a thrust at her son, aiming for his shoulder. Naruto predicted this attack, so his form fluidly moved in circular motion to Kushina's right, passing her, as she turned her sword to reach for him. However, Naruto was quicker on the draw, and in a flash, his hand unsheathed the blade and struck at Kushina's neck, hard and powerfully, sending her flying forward and falling onto the ground. Naruto looked at his mother's downed form, before she began to rise up on her feet after such a strike. She spit out blood from her mouth and wiped away the dust from her eyes, as she caught the sight of Naruto bringing his blade into a Getatsu stance and rushing towards her, ready to thrust his own sword at her. Kushina had to admit to herself that her son was definitely much faster than her, possibly just as fast as Minato, but she still had some fire left in her. When Naruto closed the distance, he sent his blade at Kushina's shoulder, but was forced to redirect the blade to block Kushina's sword that was coming for him from his right. The blades interlocked, with Naruto gripping his sword with both hands, as did Kushina, both not giving in the ground, trying to overpower one another, with Kushina speaking up. Naruto, why don't you just listen to me? I know what I had done was bad, and I am deeply sorry for it. Please, drop this whole charade and come peacefully to Konoha. She offered, with Naruto not responding, even through his emotions, as the two jumped away from one another. We can be a family, a real family, with me and your little brother. I would even help you find a suitable wife and reinstate you as an Uzumaki of Konoha. Please, Sochi, just. Enough of this. Naruto simply stated, as he rushed at Kushina at his full speed, practically fading away from the sight, before his voice was heard again. Uzumaki Kenjutsu, Sabama Geishi. Kushina's eyes widened, as she caught a sight of 3 red blades moving towards her at a great speed and slamming into her body. Throat and kidneys, those were the strikes that had been hit by Naruto, as he reappeared in the world, looking at Kushina who was reeling from the effects of what usually is a certain killing move. With some difficulty, she rose up from her place, nurturing her bruised neck and sides, looking at Naruto, who didn't even spare a glance at her, moving away towards the stands. As they did so, Tsunade looked at Soji and his wife, speaking up. Well, Soji Okita, you are hired. Tsunade simply stated to him. Gotta say, I had my own doubts that you Shinsengumi were as good as they say, but after seeing this, well, now I see why Water Daimyo regards you so highly. It is an honor to hear that from one of the Sanins and best medic in the world, Lady Hokage. Soji simply said to her in his humble manner. As I understand it, it is now my task to effectively rebuild and reorganize the work of Konoha's police force from scratch, if I am not mistaken. No, you are not. Tsunade said to him simply, with Jiraiya hearing of this one and speaking up. Wait, Tsunade, are you planning on rebuilding Konoha's police force? Konoha doesn't have that many shinobi to spare, and council sure as hell won't actually be for this. Not to mention, Jiraiya began to list the things that weren't going to go well with this sudden idea, before he was stopped by Tsunade. Jiraiya, are you the current Hokage of Konoha? She simply asked him, with him shaking his head at this one. No, you are not. And if memory serves me well, Hokage is in full right to administer whatever needed institutions that he or she finds needed for the village's prosperity. And having something as basic as a bloody police force in our village, who would keep the criminal elements and other unsavory stuff under check. Plus, it will also keep the public baths and hot springs safe from you. Tsunade glared at the white-haired man, who sunk a little bit at the thought of his favorite places now being closed off. Not to mention that it long overdue that Konoha civilians got a proper police instead of just random shinobi doing C-ranked patrolling and policing the town, something they aren't exactly fully qualified for. Quite so, Lady Hokage, considering that the work of police is not just in capturing criminals, but in enforcement of the law and order in populace, prevention of crime happening, investigation possible law breaking and more. Soji didn't waste time confirming what Tsunade had already thought. This requires specialized training, close knowledge of laws, judicial system, connections with several additional offices, etc. Which is why there are some things I would like to discuss with you, before we get to Konoha, if you have time. I figured you wouldn't be wasting time, considering you are my son friend. Tsunade simply smiled at this one. We talk tomorrow, on our way to Konoha. By the way, Naruto, what about that second person you wanted to talk to? Naruto looked at his mother to answer, but he stopped for a second, as if recalling something, but then spoke up. No worries, I had a shadow clone to talk to her. We meet her in my home, she already went there with her stuff. Naruto informed her, with Jiraiya cocking her brow upwards. And who is this? Her, exactly. Jiraiya asked skeptically. Another one of your mercenary friends. No, Tem. She is someone you obviously failed to be for me. Naruto critically answered him. She is my former sensei. Meanwhile, at Naruto home. At a small encampment right near Naruto house, Konoha shinobi were sitting there and licking their wounds and pride, having been beaten so soundly by whom they had considered to be the dead last, a cheater and a general overall weakling. It was hard for Konoha shinobi to accept the fact of Naruto actually being a son of 4th Hokage, grandson to 5th and direct descendant of 1st and 2nd Hokage, not to mention how they basically had belittled him on his last days in Konoha. Of course, they wouldn't fully acknowledge their entire fault in all this, believing that they were not at full fault there, as they were influenced by their clans, parents, council, etc. However, deep down inside, some of them knew that Naruto was fully justified in his actions here and that now, after such a long time away from Konoha, he is no longer a prey for them to hunt for. No, he has become a predator, a hunter, with more power than possibly even a Hokage possesses and skill set that could probably match that of his father. And right now, members of Team 7, to whom Naruto paid personal attention during the fight, were now sitting nearby his house, thinking over what had happened yesterday. Sasuke was practically literally seething with anger and rage, with his near-broken body almost shaking from it. This was an utter defeat for him, at the hands of one person he considered to be utterly worthless and powerless against him. He would never acknowledge Naruto as equal or superior, never, or he wouldn't be an Uchiha. Yet, this disgrace has humiliated him. An Uchiha, the prodigy of Konoha and its best, maimed and nearly destroyed him like it was nothing. He had demolished his Susanoo, burned away his flesh, arm and one of his eyes, taking away the ability to properly wield Amaterasu. And what was even more humiliating, is the fact that he literally used his Enten to defeat him. The dove had dared to use what was essentially his clan's true power, and without even Sharingan and Mangekyo, which made it nothing more but a fake. Yet that same fake had cost him an arm and eye, not to mention extreme burns that Karen was reluctant to heal, and even then she didn't restore his former beauty. Gritting his teeth, Sasuke's thoughts raced in his head. Damn that dove, he dares to humiliate, to maim me. Just because he got lucky, does he think it makes him my equal? Think again. Sasuke casted a glance at Naruto's house. Dobi showed up when I mentioned his house, So, that worthless idiot has someone precious in there, hasn't he? Well, if I can kill him now, I LL simply punish those that had lowered themselves to his level. Maybe I LL even let his whore of a wife taste like a true elite. Smiling maliciously and seeing how Gurren had gone away for a bit, Sasuke decided to use this chance, standing up and walking right towards the door. Sasuke-kun, where are you going? You need to rest and, Sakura had tried to stop him, but her own wound still let her know of itself. Shut up, Sakura. I am going to see what that has done inside, and learn who was dumb enough to be with him. Sasuke snarled, as he went towards the door, with Kakashi actually standing up and moving closer, curious himself. Sasuke with his only hand opened up the door and looked inside, seeing what could only be described as a perfectly normal family house, with several photos of 3 women, 2 kids and Naruto hanging near. Snarling and glaring at them, Sasuke almost wanted to roar in frustration, as it seemed like Naruto was not just married, but married to 3 women, and had kids. Kids. Him. How that dead last piece of shit dared to be so happy and have a family. And those women looked beautiful, strong and worthy of his attention, yet they would take Naruto's seat over his. He wouldn't have it, those 3 must be his, but first. Mama. Did you see where Ma-kun is? Shouted out a little girl's voice, who came out of the guest room and was right in front of Sasuke, who was just looking for her. Yasaka, you know the rules. No tips from me and others while playing hide and, Kurama spoke up, coming out of the kitchen and coming to glances with Sasuke Uchiha, snarling and smirking, immediately putting her on the defenses and taking position in front of her daughter. Yasaka, dear, go to your room now. The commanding voice of Kurama was something that Yasaka understood well. Forgetting about the game and having sensed the emotions of Uchiha, she ran right towards her room. So, you are one of Naruto's bitches, Eren tu. Sasuke wasn't asking, as much as snarling, meeting the glare of Kurama with his own. Huh, so the dove has a taste at least. No matter, as soon as I punished him for what he has done, I LL show you what a true elite can do. You would do nicely as one of my wives, along with those 2 others and Karen. Uchiha, I give you half a minute to exit this house and never come in here. Kurama threatened him, channeling up a small portion of her ki, but enough to overwhelm a single person. Sasuke trembled, sensing the sheer might of ki of this woman, but that didn't deter him. No, instead it only encouraged him, as he smirked and moved to grab her wrist rudely and with the crudeness of a barbarian. I like when a woman has some backbone to her. He smiled at her, moving closer to her. Makes it all the better when they submit too. In the very next instant, Sasuke Uchiha, heir to Clan Uchiha and supposedly the greatest prodigy of Konoha, was sent literally flying out of the house and crushing into the dirt. Everyone's eyes were widened at the sight of it, almost not believing what they just witnessed. Landing on his back and spitting out blood after a very strong punch in his stomach, possibly shattering several of his ribs. Kurama walked out of her house, graciously, but also with a posture of extreme power, closing the door behind her. She walked calmly to Sasuke, ignoring the curious and shocked looks of Konoha Shinobi, and took him by his throat with one hand and lifted him up without any trouble, a sight that shocked many. And then, she spoke up. I have warned you, Uchiha, to leave my house, but now you will pay for not listening to your better. Kurama brought up her free left hand in front of strangled Sasuke, preparing to exact her own punishment, but was interrupted when she felt her hand being stopped, just as she was channeling up her power. I wouldn't recommend you doing anything that could hurt my pupil, and would you kindly put him down? Kakashi spoke in a calm, yet threatening way, hoping to force this red-haired woman to stop. Should you not, and I'll be more than happy to make you regret that decision. His free hand already had sparkles of lighting on itself, indicating that Hitaki was ready to channel his Reikiri into play. Kurama calmly turned to look at the now one-eyed man, who had the gall to threaten her in such an open manner. It almost amused her, although she had to recall the fact that only a select few knew that she was none other than Kyuubi no Kitsune, the most powerful of Biju upon the land, at her most powerful, capable of destroying countries in a matter of minutes. There have been very few who had ever dared to challenge Kurama to a battle, and only 2 had lived to tell the tale, and this pathetic excuse of Naruto's sensei was nowhere near their level of power, skill or respect. Considering the fact that Kurama, ever since having been freed by Naruto from her imprisonment in him, has been regaining her power back and was now at her peak, it was the most foolish thing she had heard in years. Even though her being had been split into yin and yang, with yang half ending up in Naruto, Kurama has discovered that right after her release, she was regaining naturally her lost yin half of chakra. Even though Minato had split Kurama essentially into 2 beings, there was nothing that could prevent her halves from regaining their lost power naturally, regenerating it back to what it used to be. Kurama has done so, regaining her lost yin chakra through the most trivial for her regeneration of chakra, while the part that had been taken away from her originally, still remained inside Menma, sealed away by Minato. Essentially, there were now 2 Kyuubi, with one being at its fullest power and free, and the other being sealed away, being only half of Kurama's strength, in a brat that could not even control properly, whilst his brother held a perfect control over Kurama's full power. Kurama looked at Kakashi Hitaki with a glare, simply tossing Sasuke Uchiha away like he was nothing more but trash for her. She spoke up to the man in a deadly serious tone of the voice. "You are the man they call Kakashi Hitaki, the one that was supposed to train my husband in the past." Kurama saw a confused look upon his face. "Threaten me once again, Hitaki, and it won't be my Naru-kun who will be the end of you. And if that Uchiha trash ever enters my home again, I will send him to the rest of his wretched dead clan." Kurama freed herself from Kakashi's grasp and moved towards her house, before she was stopped by Sakura. "Hold it right there, Missy. Who the hell do you think you are to threaten Sasuke-kun and insult him like that? I'll make you pay for it." Sakura stood right in front of Kurama and sent her punch towards her, but Kurama easily evaded her and caught her in midair. "Let go of me, bitch." Just who the, without wasting any breath, Kurama's hand casually gripped Sakura's caught fist, crushing to bits her hand, earning an ear-piercing scream from the pinkett, before she was shut up by a single punch to the face from Kurama, breaking her lips, nose and knocking her out of commission. Sakura. "Okay lady, I have warned you once, but now," just as Kakashi was about to channel up his jutsu, the ground between him and Kurama suddenly became engulfed in red fire that seemed to completely scorch away all it touched. So, this is the infamous Kakashi of the Sharingan, the copycat ninja. Though, I think it now a former copycat ninja, considering the circumstances. Kakashi and everyone looked at a young woman walking right through fire taking a stance right between him and Kurama. "Kurama, mind if I handle this trash? I'm sure Yusaka is looking for you already, plus they got a score to settle with this disgrace of a sensei. Be my guest, Pakura." Kurama merely said, as she went back inside her house. Pakura. You wouldn't happen to be Pakura of Shikuden, the supposedly dead Suna Kunoichi, killed by Kiri Shinobi about 8 years ago? Kakashi asked of her lazily, yet inside was starting to sweat bullets at a possible prospect of fighting someone who could decimate him 7 ways till Sunday, especially now that his Sharingan was gone. And I don't recall us ever crossing paths with each other in the past, so what kind of a grudge would you have with me? You were right, we haven T crossed paths. Pakura confirmed. However, you and I do have something in common, Hitaki. You and I both had trained Naruto, only I had trained him as his real sensei, while you have done nothing more than to make him a punching bag for this Uchiha scum. Wait, you were Naruto sensei. When did that happen? Kakashi asked her, shocked, as the flames around them continued to burn. Right after he left Konoha and up until I deemed him to be ready as a true shinobi. Pakura simply answered him. Now, Naruto had actually told me how you have trained him, and what you had done to him in his past, his own sensei and supposed best student and follower of his father's footsteps. If there is someone I hate more than traitors, it would have to be the scum like you, sensei, who is biased and unjust to his students, ignores them and is utterly rotten to the core. You they hurt my student in the past, and I am a woman that doesn't take lightly to that, so I hope you are ready for some payback, Kakashi Hitaki. Pakura took up a fighting stance, as she was ready to make Kakashi pay for what he did to Naruto in the past, as his sensei and more. Kakashi has always considered himself to be someone who could outmatch and outperform most shinobi of Jonin rank. He was the prime student of 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze, a born prodigy, made Jonin at the age of 12, and allowed into Anbu at the age of 15, one of the earliest recorded shinobi to be made in Anbu. His skills, multitude of powerful and strong jutsu, coupled with a great deal of experience, have made him a fearsome opponent to deal with for anyone. However, a crucial part of his reputation and strength lay with his possession of Sharingan, which Obito had given to him. With him, every battle for Kakashi was a matter of simply predicting his enemy next movement and countering it. But, yesterday Naruto had removed his Sharingan, right in the middle of battle and without much help from outside, and any anesthetic for Kakashi, before shutting down his nervous system through a powerful influx of foreign chakra. Had Naruto still been his apprentice, he probably would been proud of him, but he wasn't t. And to add to Kakashi's injuries, while Shizune had patched him up, he still felt sore and sluggish after the overload of his nerves, not to mention a headache to add to this one. All of that combined with the fact that Kakashi was now facing off against one of the few kunoichi in the entire world that could contend for the title of the deadliest kunoichi in the world, made Kakashi sweat bullets and regret his life at the moment. Pakura was relentless, merciless, and determined like hell to see Kakashi's face in the dirt and her foot on top of his chest, and she was extremely effective against him now. He had heard that she was Suna's mistress of fire, but right now, she was taking him down with just taijutsu, which could rival that of Guy for crying out loud. Just now, Kakashi had tried to punch her with his right fist, only for Pakura to catch it easily, and pull Kakashi towards herself, before delivering a high kick to his face. Next up, she effortlessly threw him over her shoulder, landing the silver-haired man just near the edge of her flame. Kakashi groaned from pain, as he rose up, pulling out 3 of his kunai and throwing them right at Pakura. Former Suna's mistress simply ducked underneath them, before quickly rising up and dodging Kakashi's next attack with his kunai in hand. Pakura was naturally more flexible in her movements, though she still had some way to go before she reached the level of Yugito, but right now it was enough to move like water and catch Kakashi once again with his hand in kunai. A quick series of 4 punches in his stomach and ribs, followed by the finishing one in his only looking eye, was enough for Kakashi to lose his grip and drop the kunai, stepping backwards and covering his only eye. Pakura decided that this was enough of taijutsu, and without even weaving hand signs, she sent a concentrated torrent of wind right towards Kakashi Hitaki. It captured him inside of itself and carried him out of the self-extinguished ring and away from Naruto's house and camp, before he was slammed against the tree, probably breaking a couple of his ribs. Spitting blood through his mask, Kakashi suddenly found himself unable to rise up, as if his entire body was completely paralyzed, but he was completely sure that he hadn't been poisoned in any way. Don even tried to move. With some difficulty he managed to raise his head and see Pakura right in front of him, and some kinds of inscriptions on the ground. 4-symbol paralyzing seal. It may not be the strongest paralysis seal in the world, but this particular variant that Naruto had taught me is capable of holding in its place even someone of low cage level. That should be enough for someone like you. Okay, listen, I know that you have some kind of beef with me, but do you mind explaining what it is that you are so angry with me about? Kakashi asked her, with Pakura clutching her fist. From what I understand, you were Naruto sensei, or was at the time, but this isn the only reason to be angry at me, is it? No, it only half the reason, Kakashi Hatake. And the other half, 12 years ago, a small fishing village in Land of Rivers, supposedly massacred by Suna Nuke Nin Sasori. Your Anbu team was sent there to investigate it. Do you remember what you did back there? Pakura glared right at Kakashi, whose black eyes slightly widened at the memory and realization. No. Yes, copycat, Pakura glared at him. That village, it was my home. 12 years ago. Borders between Land of Wind and Land of Rivers. Pakura and her personal unit were running through the woods, as if they were racing against death itself. The reason for their hurry was the pillar of smoke rising up from the east, close to the sea. Pakura's eyes immediately widened, as she recognized where the smoke was coming from, and without waiting around or any meddling, she leapt right towards the destination. Her unit wasn't far behind her, and if they were to be questioned later on as to why they abandoned their post, they could tell the truth and state that they were investigating. Land of Rivers was an ally of Land of Wind, and Suna Shinobi would be the ones patrolling its borders as well, as per missions and contracts. However, right now Pakura wasn't racing against time because of a mission or something. No, she was leaping towards a small fishing village close to Land of Wind borders, the village that was her home and where most of her childhood had taken place, until she and several other members of her clan were sent to Suna, as a part of agreement between Rivers and Suna. Pakura's clan was a more independent one, not wanting to settle down in a shinobi village, but not stubborn enough as to refuse cooperation with them. Having settled down in the fishing village, heads of the clan established contact with Suna and created good relations with them, consisting of trade, protection and non-aggression pact from Suna, with the clan providing its members as shinobi in their ranks to serve. They would later on be allowed to leave the service after a certain period of time, or continue to remain in Suna as official citizens with some privileges. Pakura was one of those shinobi given to Suna as per agreement, and now she was heading towards her home, praying that everything was all right there. Unfortunately for her, gods and fate weren't on her side today, as she and her unit reached the edge of the forest and saw a terrifying picture before themselves. A small village, less than 30 houses, turned into ashes and ruins, with the ground littered with bodies of men, women and children, killed by kunai, shuriken, stabs and jutsu. The smell of rotting and burned flesh was present in the air, and some of the weaker shinobi threw up, but not Pakura, frozen in place with a horrified expression upon her face. After several seconds of waiting, she finally spoke up. Look, spread out, and look for survivors, double time. Pakura had finally composed herself and shouted out orders, with her subordinates immediately moving to execute them, while Pakura immediately headed towards the house of the elder, aka her clan's main house. Without any trouble, she broke through the burned door and went inside, immediately covering her nose from the smells in there. Blood, burnt flesh, smoke and ozone. Pakura was no novice and has carried out many missions for Kazekage and Suna, including the ones where she would have to deal with Kumogakure and its shinobi. And from her experience, she knew that if you smell ozone in the air, it meant that Raiden Jutsu was used here. It definitely smells like Raiden here, but why the hell would Kumo even be here? It is too far away from them, and even Iwa Dosen T let itself get so far south. Something Dosen T add up to her. The only shinobi village in relative proximity to this place, aside from Suna, is, wait, coughing. Pakura heard a distinct coughing sound and rushed on the second floor, where she found a great deal of smoke and a distinct coughing sound, coming from what could only be a little girl. Futon. Great breakthrough. Casting hand signs, Pakura unleashes the stream of wind that clears out the place and lets her see a small black-haired girl, dressed in a simple dress and coughing. Rushing through the ambers and small flames, Pakura grabs the girl and leaps out of the house through the wooden window. Once outside, she carefully seats the girl against the fence, letting her cough out the smoke and giving her some water. After all this is done, Pakura looks at her and asks her, "Don't worry, you are safe now. We are Suna Shinobi and I am Pakura, daughter of China and Jin." The girl seems to have recognized the names that Pakura gave to her, as she calmed down. "I am from this village and a member of the Akahi clan. You can trust me, so tell me what has happened here. Who did all this?" I was with my mommy and daddy, when suddenly some strange people attacked. They were dressed like shinobi, but had masks on them, animal masks. The girl said, as she coughed a little, with Pakura stiffening up more. Animal masks, Anbu Black Ops, no doubt about it. Having been an Anbu herself, Pakura knew that only someone of their level would carry out this atrocity. "Tell me, did you manage to see something unusual about them? Something that stuck out, like unusual jutsu, looks or something along those lines?" One of them, the leader of them, he had silver hair, spiky hair, and lightning in his hand, and also a red eye, a blood-red eye. Girl said to Pakura, he killed my mommy, when we ran to the head house and, it didn't take long until the girl went into a crying fit, with Pakura hugging her, trying to calm her down, while inside, she was boiling with fury and utter anger. Silver spiky hair with red eyes, not to mention lightning in hand, Konoha, damn you and your copycat ninja, Kakashi Hatake. Pakura mentally cursed Suna's supposed ally. First you use us as a shield against Iwa, then you steal our contracts and run us dry, and now this. My home, my clan and family, Lord Casecage must hear of this, it cannot stand. I will make you all pay, you Konoha bastards. I personally burn all of you away, and as for you, Hatake, I drown you in the depths of inferno with my own hands for doing this. Flashback ends. When Lord Casecage had heard of it, he refused to make any move against you, Konoha bastards. I demanded that Suna take action, but he just wouldn't do it. It is too costly for Suna and unnecessary, to risk lives of our people and resources to simply avenge a small fishing village. That is what he had told me. Pakura said to Kakashi. And soon after that, I was sent to Kiri as a sacrifice, but the bastard underestimated me and my skill. I didn't get out unscathed, but I was still able to get out of Kiri and, understanding that if I returned to Suna I would be put to sword, I settled down on an island nation close to Whirlpool and Fire Lands. I am sure you know which I mean, Kakashi. Wave, so Naruto went to Wave right after he was banished, didn't he? Kakashi asked her. Should they guessed, but who would they thought that he would find himself someone like you. As for your village, we they received information from our sources, that your village was starting to supply renegade elements within Konoha with weapons and resources. Evidence presented to us pointed out that it was true, so Hokage gave us the orders. It was nothing personal. My village lived off of trading with Suna and fishing, and the only weapons that it had were those in hands of my clan, and those were not enough for a battalion of soldiers, much less enough to trade them. Pakura countered. In Suna, they heard that there was a war hawk in Konoha, hell-bent on taking over Konoha and eradicating any supposed threat to it, and he also had a personal Anbu unit of his own. Danzo Shimura, is that the guy that gave your Hokage the information? Pakura could clearly see that she was right in her guess. Makes you wonder, if your third really was a Hokage or not. Still, that does not excuse what you did back then, not one bit. Maybe, but here what's bugging me, if you were in Wave all this time, why not take down Zabuza and Gato on your own? I was away from Wave, visiting some old friends, and when Gato appeared, I decided not to draw any attention to myself and stayed in River for a bit, until I heard of his death. Pakura simply said to him. I may Vebud been presumed dead, but it wouldn't do if I were to be discovered. And as for how I found myself my last and best apprentice. Flashback. 7 years and 6 months ago. Land of Wave. Town Port Market. Pakura, dressed in civilian clothing, was walking around the trading stands, looking to buy herself some food and maybe some new clothes from other lands. Ever since the blockade of Wave had been lifted and Gato company effectively been taken over by Tazuna, now new Wave daimyo, the trade has boomed like never before, with Wave quickly becoming a trading center in this side of the world. And all thanks to the boy in whose name the Great Bridge stood, connecting Wave and Fire lands. While Pakura hated the fact that it was Kakashi Hatake team that did the deed, she would like to meet the kid, Naruto, as Tazuna called him, who saved the people here. From what she had heard, that boy was one of a kind, and to be able to bring back hope and will into the entire land, it was something that Pakura could respect. Going through the stands and buying herself fresh fish, rice and a new set of shoes with a dress, Pakura was right on her way home through the streets. That continued for some time, until she heard something that resembled a brawl in the back corner of the street. Curious as to what the whole ruckus was about, she headed to see what was going on. Once she was there, she saw an interesting picture for herself. About 7 sailors were attacking a kid of 13 or 14 years old, dressed in a horrendous ragged orange jumpsuit, with sun-kissed blonde hair and blue eyes and 3 whiskers on his cheeks, which was dispatching them seemingly without much trouble. It didn't take long for Pakura to catch on that the kid was definitely a shinobi, but it was strange for her to see him not wearing a headband of any villages. However, that little detail quickly left her mind, as her more professional came out, as she picked up on something that really bugged her, namely, kid fighting style. What in Kami name is this? That kid fighting style is just horrendous, worse than this jumpsuit of his. Pakura watched as he clumsily fought against the sailors. Stance is rigid and without any mobility, footwork is not present and the punches and kicks are predictable. If I ever find out who had trained this kid in taijutsu, I have words about his teachings. Still, he does have some speed and strength behind his strikes, but such style, if I didn't know any better, I would thought that it was designed just to get this kid killed. Okay, time to end this horror show for my eyes. Without a second thought, Pakura puts down her bags and goes to town with those idiots. Having trained herself into a practically living weapon, Pakura was an expert when it came down to taking down enemies quickly and efficiently. And now she was going to see if she hadn't lost any of her skills, as quickly closed the distance between herself and the sailors. The first 2 of her victims met heads with each other, as Pakura slammed them together. Next one received a quick punch to the jaw, before kicking him into the dumpster, with his friend being followed soon, as Pakura struck at his groin and threw him in. As for the last three, Pakura did a quick series of signs, sending them flying to the wall through Winjutsu. A couple of seconds and all was done, with the blonde kid looking in awe at his unwanted savior, who spoke up herself. "Kid, are you okay there?" Pakura asked him, with the blonde snapping out of gazing at her. "You mind telling me what a genin like you doing all the way in wave? And just what in Kami*'s name was it that you were doing here?" Pakura asked him in full seriousness. "Huh. Oh, I**am okay, no worries. And I**am not actually a genin, not anymore," Blonde answered to Pakura, with the last part being half whispered with a great deal of sadness, making Pakura raise up her brow. "I mean I was, but, about a week ago, I was banished from Konoha." Pakura widened her eyes in surprise at this one, as she couldn't even grasp why Konoha would banish a genin. "You were banished from Konoha?" Pakura asked again, with the blonde nodding at this one. "Why would your Hokage banish you? Usually, banishment is the second highest penalty for the crimes of treason, treachery etc. Did you do something so bad that—" No, I didn't. I simply did what I was tasked for, and those bastards, they, the blonde sudden outburst and subsequent stutter shocked Pakura, as she could see a great deal of anger and fury inside the boy, but also, sadness, just like with her. For a second, Pakura thought that she had looked at herself in the mirror, only not. The kid must been simply doing his duty, and in reward, his village decided to get rid of him, just like with her. Pakura's features softened, as she looked with sympathy at the kid, placing a hand on his shoulder and calming him a bit, as she spoke up again. "Kid, you wouldn't happen to be hungry?" The blonde looked up at the woman with a surprise. "I live not too far away from here, so if you help with my bags, I wouldn't mind sharing lunch with you." "Sure." The blonde immediately agreed happily, going to pick up the bags of the woman and leaving the corner with her. "By the way, my name is Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki." Pakura looked with surprise at the boy. "Naruto, the same kid in whose honor that bridge is named after." Pakura received a nod, smiling back at him. "LLB, everyone in this town and others are practically preying on your name for what you have done for them, with taking down Gato and his mercs. Tazuna wouldn't shut up about what a great kid you are. You know the old man Tazuna. Wait, the way you fought back there, I don't recall you in Konoha, and you don't have a headband, are you a nuke nin, like Zabuza?" Naruto asked, after stiffening up, with Pakura answering to him. "Neither, I was presumed dead after my supposed diplomatic mission to Kiri by my old village of Suna." Pakura answered him, with Naruto perking his head up at this one. "The mission was just a setup, a way to sacrifice me to Kiri to end hostilities between Suna and them. My killers underestimated me, and I survived, and since then I been living here as a civilian. Oh, and my name is Pakura, Pakura of Scorch Release, you may heard my name." "Nope, first time I ever hear it." Naruto simply answered her, surprising Pakura once again. "Looks like your village isn't better than mine. Well, hopefully Gaara can change things up there for the better. I hear he now a cage there, so he bound to make things a lot better there for civilians and shinobi alike. Yeah, I heard that he is actually highly respected now in Suna. Who would thought that the kid who was so hated by villagers would become their leader," Pakura said, catching a glimpse of sadness from the boy. "We are almost there. Say, you wouldn't be against telling me what exactly happened between you and Konoha? I am curious, why would they just up and kick you out?" Naruto simply nodded to Pakura and the two entered the house. 2 hours later, Pakura had thought that there was nothing that Konoha would be able to do to make her hate it more than before. She was wrong, very wrong. After having lunch with Naruto and listening to his story, Pakura felt horrified, disgusted and furious at the same time. For Konoha, to utterly destroy and banish its loyal shinobi, just because he was doing his duty, and to make it worse, to reveal to the entire world that he was the Kyuubi, as the village had thought. Konoha, a village that was always so arrogant and proud about its bonds of friendship and loyalty, it will of fire and all the crap, and to do such a thing to a kid with a potential for greatness. It took everything out of Pakura just not to lash out at the closest furniture and incinerate it in a fit of rage. Having been a teacher and sensei to students and genins of Suna, Pakura has developed a protective nature, one that was now abhorred at how Kakashi Hatake had treated his own student. She silently swore to herself to kill that bastard if she ever got a chance, adding up to what he did to her. After calming down and thinking everything over, Pakura looked at Naruto and spoke up again, interested in learning what he was up to now. "Are you going to settle down in Wave for now, Naruto?" Pakura asked him, with Naruto shaking his head. "No, I can do that, not now anyway. You see, there is this group of S-rank missing nins that S after me, plus now that everyone knows that I am Kyuubi holder, other nations will be after me as well. So I can stay in one place for long, or they get a wind of it," Naruto said to Pakura, who nodded to him. "Plus, I doubt that Konoha would let me live in peace. A year or two, and they be hunting me down as well, just to keep me away from others." "Good point, kid. But in that case, what is your overall plan?" Pakura asked him. "Well, recently Kyuubi and I actually established a contact and it said that I should disappear, fake my own death and change my looks." Pakura looked surprised at this one. "So, they got something of a plan on how to do it, so I am heading to Suna, so that Gaara could help me. After that, I be heading to Uzushiogakure, which Ka-chan said is the legacy of my clan in Senju." I see." Pakura couldn't help but admit that it was a solid idea, but there was also one more thing she wanted to do with Naruto now. "Naruto, you said that Kakashi Tem and Jiraiya hadn't trained you in anything, safe for tree and water walking, summoning and Rasengan of 4th, is that right? And that your academy instructors were the only ones that even trained you in taijutsu?" "Yeah. Kakashi mainly focused on that bastard Sasuke, and Jiraiya was busy peeping at women all the time," Naruto grumbled at this one. "And as for instructors, they didn't really train me, as much as they beaten me to the pulp. That explains why your taijutsu was so horrendously atrocious. All of those moves were fast and strong, yet with that style, you should be dead already. The fact that you even made use of it effectively just says what a gem those bastards tried to kill." Pakura let out a sigh, catching Naruto's surprised look. "Why are you looking so surprised? I been an academy instructor and teacher in Suna for 8 years, right after I became a chunin, so I got an eye for hidden talents and promising people. And you, Naruto Uzumaki, are one such kid. You really think so?" "Definitely, but, much like any diamond, you need to be shaped up by a professional, someone who understands that just teamwork won't get people anywhere and that individual skills in combination with the natural bond of partnership between shinobi is how a team fights," Pakura simply stated with a smile to Naruto. "I trained over 50 students in the Academy of Suna, and made 12 genins into chunins, and now, Naruto, I would like to make you an offer. I want to train you to be a real shinobi for yourself." Naruto looked shocked at Pakura, who decided to explain myself. "Before you ask or say anything, let me tell you, that people like you are rare as rain in the middle of a desert. You are the kind of a person that gives hope to others, inspires and protects those that are down in spirits. They always aimed to train my students that way, and you are already there, but your skills and training need to be right, if you want to survive out there on your own. Along with that, I would hate it, if someone like you, a person with a heart of gold and will of iron, were to die because he was trained so irresponsibly. I know it sounds strange, but, if you want, Naruto, I will be happy to train you as my apprentice and teach you what it means to be a shinobi. Now, would you like that? Why yes, I do. I want it, Pakura-sensei. Thank you. Naruto smiled, as he bowed respectfully before Naruto, with Pakura smiling at her new apprentice. Flashback ends. And, unlike you and those imbeciles, they done my job right and trained Naruto in all I could give him and more. Pakura stated to Kakashi, as she took out her kunai and began to walk towards him. Now, I know that Naruto has more than enough reasons to deal with you personally, but knowing him, he wouldn't mind if I took care of trash like you personally. To kill innocent children en masse, to twist your sensei's teachings for your own good and use his name as an excuse, and to abandon your student when he needed you most, scumbags like you do not deserve to live, Kakashi Hatake. Pakura said with hatred, as she was ready to slash his throat open, when Severe Leaf Hurricane. Hearing the coming of the green wild beast of Konoha, Pakura instantly jumped away from her spot, which was immediately occupied by Might Guy, who immediately took up a fighting stance. No one will kill Kakashi while I am around, his eternal youthful rival, Konoha's beautiful green beast, Might Guy. And you, the treacherous teacher of that demon, will learn the true meaning of youth, friendship and honor, through my fists. Guy was ready to deliver divine punishment upon Pakura, who simply took up her own fighting stance. The infamous beast of Konoha, Might Guy, Naruto had told me about you, specifically your obsessive idiocy, along with what you had done to him and his friend Yakumo. Pakura began to channel her own chakra, as the flames began to appear around her body. To hurt innocent children so much, to try and murder them out of blind stupidity and rage, people like you are one of the reasons why I became a teacher, so I could see to it that your kindness doesn't hurt children. And for what you have done, for what the sins you committed, I'll be sending you to hell personally. Shikuden, Kagutsuchi no Yoroi. A quick series of hand signs, and Pakura's entire body was immediately engulfed in the bright red flames, covering her body and clothing in an aura of hot as hell flames, like with Raito no Yoroi. The flaming armor of Fire God. Well, if that is how you wish to do it, I must answer this challenge with my own flames of youth. Sixth Gate of View, open. And with that shout, an extremely powerful green aura around Guy was formed, as 6 out of 8 inner gates had opened up inside of him, and he looked at Pakura. Now, in this form, I shall personally make you regret ever meeting that demon and Guy, Kakashi, what the hell is going on here? Suddenly, came the powerful booming voice of Tsunade Senju, drawing looks towards her, Naruto, Soji Okita, Hana Okita, Makoto Sarutobi, Kushina Uzumaki and Jiraiya. I gave clear orders as to not provoke anyone in here, and what do I find out when Naruto teleports us here? Sasuke Uchiha had tried to hurt Naruto's family, and you didn't stop him. And top it off, you threatened my granddaughter-in-law. Tsunade's chakra spiked with her ki, while Guy closed all of his gates back. Guy, if I ever hear again about you calling Naruto a demon, or that you attacked his family or friends, I'll personally close those tenketsu for you permanently. And as for you, Hatake, I'll have personal dialogue about those teamwork values you been preaching about, once we reach Konoha. Now, you are the one whom Naruto mentioned as his sensei, Pakura of Shikuden. Yes, I am. I am honored to make your acquaintance, Tsunade Senju, and glad to finally meet you in person. Hakura made a small bow to her, dispelling her armor as well. Naruto had told me a great deal about you, and I thank you for everything you "Vey done to my former student. And it's a great honor to meet the one who introduced medical education into schools. Well, I am not one to brag, but it's a pleasure to meet you as well, Hakura. I "Vey heard about your experience as a teacher and sensei, and must say that I am almost jealous of you. Tsunade chuckled a little. Now, I assume you "Vey been informed about Daimyo hiring Naruto as an independent aide to Konoha, and that you be considered a part of his group, if you come with us. Yes, Naruto's clone was extremely detailed in his descriptions, so I am well informed. Hakura confirmed it all. It has been a long while since I "Vey had my feet wet on a mission, plus I am curious about Konoha's educational system, so I am more than happy to tag along with my former student on this kind of mission, even if it means working with the likes of frog trash here and traitors to one's blood. Hakura glared at fuming Jiraiya and Kushina. Why you, just who the hell are you to call me that? A disgraced Suna Kunoichi who was so worthless, that Suna had traded her with Kiri for peace. Jiraiya shot back at Hakura. I have you know, that I have trained the 4th Hokage, and soon will finish up training the 6th one too, while what have you achieved, Training 54 students that have become Chunin in their first year as Genin, 12 Genins that are now respected Jonin instructors, 3 of whom are in Anbu and 1 running Suna Academy. And I have trained one of the world's most famous Ronins and the man that had a part in saving an entire country from collapse. Hakura answered simply, without missing a beat. I never aimed to train a Kage, or to become famous. My only goal was to properly teach children the art of being a shinobi, with hopes that they do not have to live with the sins of their predecessors, and make their own way in life. This is what a sensei and teacher must aspire to, not simply training 1 or 2 persons into being Hokage. And if you think that I allow that disgrace of a shinobi to become Hokage, Jiraiya, you may as well be going senile. Tsunade glared at him. Menma may be holding some of Minato's talent, but his arrogance and that damned stubbornness is worse than yours, not to mention that pride of his and how he carries himself. Just looking at him somehow makes me glad that you didn't raise Naruto, Kushina. Menma may have some small shortcomings, but he is just as genius as Minato was, if not more, Tsunade. And you can deny him his rightful status as Senju and Uzumaki head, no matter how you try. Kushina glared at Tsunade. He holds Minato and my blood of founders of his clans, so you have no right to. The head of Senju is still me, and it is up to me to decide who will become the next head, not up to you or that damned council. Tsunade reminded to Kushina. And as for the head of Uzumaki clan, or Uzukage, as it is traditionally called, I may not be a full-blooded Uzumaki, but from Mito-ba-chan, I know that the sacred right of being in Uzukage rests with one who holds Zangetsu, one of 3 founding sacred relics of Uzukage. The 2 others were lost, but Zangetsu remains, and you know as well as I do who holds it, Kushina. Kushina stiffened up at the mention of it, with Naruto, meanwhile, dispelling the 4-symbol paralysis seal for Kakashi. Hitaki, threaten my wife again, or if I see that Uchiha scumbag of yours near her or my family, I be coming not just for your eye, but for your head. Naruto threatens his former sensei, before teleporting away from him into his house. In a flash of black and red, he stood right in front of his home, with Sasuke and Sakura again trying to break into the house, even though this time Gurren and Karen were there to stop them. Motioning them to stand aside, Naruto made his way to his 2 former teammates, his Ki practically flooding the entire area, drawing attention from those two to him and to the others. Sasuke smirked, with Sakura, who had healed her hand, already screaming at Naruto. Naruto. One of your bitches had hurt Sasuke-kun, so get her out of there, so that I can punish her. And those two other women, get them out as well, before I make you regret ever lifting your finger against Sasuke and stealing what is rightfully. Without any words, Naruto grabbed Sakura by her throat and lifted her up without any trouble, shocking even Sasuke at this one. You are such an annoying bitch, Sakura. And without any trouble or hesitation, Naruto snaps her neck with a simple move of his hand, ending the miserable existence of one called Sakura Haruno, whose body simply hit the ground before Naruto, Karen and Gurren. LLB, they've been waiting to shut her up for so long. Karen said with satisfaction. Naruto, give it time, I'll rock your bloody world. Date and place, and LL bone you dry. Karen stated with confidence and determination. You do remember that you are cousins, right? Gurren reminded her friend of that little fact. We are from two very distant branches, they checked. We they got little in terms of actual blood relation, aside from being of one clan. In my eyes, after all he has done to me and saved me, he is the guy the first would only be with. Karen simply stated, adjusting her glasses. Naruto, you monster. How could you just kill Sakura like that? Ino screamed at him. You they loved her, and now you just. Looks like you really have changed, Naruto. Shikamaru said coldly, standing up. Naruto, that we used to know, would never kill someone just because they were troublesome. But you really are a demon, it would seem. To kill Kiba first, and now Sakura, you won't get away with either of those, I can assure you. The council will. Shikamaru, if you haven't noticed, I don't answer to your council, only to Daimyo and Hokage. And as for Kiba, that rabid dog had it coming for years, and Sakura had assaulted my wife for defending our family. Speaking of which, Naruto turned his gaze at Sasuke, who was seething with fury, before he met the full force of Naruto's ki, making him shiver in fear. First you try to kill me, and now that you can kill me, you go after my children and wives. Was that something that Kakashi had taught you, or is this just how Uchihas fight their wars and battles, I wonder? Dobi, you think you LL get away with something like that? Once council hears of it, they LL hang you up on the rope, and as for your whores, they LL only be happy to give them to me, the elite Uchiha. And as for your little bastards, they LL answer for their father sins once I breed your bitches properly enough. I LL even make them witness how their mothers are brought down before the might of Uchiha and made to carry my seed instead of yours. Sasuke snarled with a smirk, not noticing how Naruto was channeling medical chakra in his left hand. You don't deserve to even breath the same air as I do, and you most certainly don't deserve to have a family and children. Believe me, once we are back in Konoha, the council will do just what I say to them, and you will pay for all this with your life, done. Sasuke, you know what is funny? Naruto suddenly asked him. You are the person I would love to kill the most, but if I were to do so right now, I wouldn't be able to savor it. No, I LL keep you alive, make sure that you witness your own destruction, how you are mixed with shit and dirt, made to beg for death. And once you are on your knees, begging for death, I LL give you my permission to die. But until then, I LL make sure that there won't be any more degenerates like you. With that, Naruto quickly paralyzed Sasuke with his right hand, and his left hand went to Sasuke's groin, pushing into Uchiha's pride and personal glory the destructive energy. Unable to move, Sasuke could only watch in horror how Naruto's Irio ninjutsu went inside of his crotch and sack of balls, before he felt like he was being rotted from inside out. He screamed in internal pain, dropping onto the ground and holding onto his groin with his only hand, feeling how the tool that he intended to use for repopulating his clan was rotting away, literally. Naruto cleaned up his hands with water jutsu, looking at the crawling Sasuke Uchiha, as he had tried desperately to hold his manhood together but failed miserably. Karen simply looked away disgusted, while Gurren was more curious as to what Naruto did to him. "Naruto, what was that jutsu you just pulled off on him? It looks terrifyingly painful," Gurren simply stated, with Naruto speaking up. "This is something they actually come up with, when I was just starting to learn Iryo ninjutsu. You know why medics need to have perfect chakra control, so that we can channel healing chakra properly into the body and accelerate regenerative properties of cells, right?" Gurren nodded to this one, having learned a couple of things whilst being Tsunade's bodyguard. "Well, whilst I was training on wounded and dead wildlife in Uzu, I quickly found out that if you overload medically charged chakra into a body, the cells will not only begin to reproduce at an accelerated rate, but will mutate and reproduce at a deadly rate, before dying away in a matter of seconds. Think of it as cancer on Red Bull and steroids, but also on acid, kinda. Anyway, the important part about all of this is that Sasuke's reproductive system has experienced upon itself the entire process of being cancerous in a matter of a second, before falling rotting away due to cellular destruction. And they say Rasengan is dangerous. Hey. Get something like this in between your legs, and you won't be getting any fun from it." Naruto simply chuckled, looking at a horrified expression of Gurren and Karen. "Shit, and I thought Orochimaru was dark, but this, you know that you can be scary at times, Naruto, right?" Gurren said to him, with Naruto simply shrugging it off. "Does Tsunade know about your... I call it the hand of corruption, since it basically corrupts cells to its worst state. And yes, she knows. I even taught her, which is easy to learn, actually. It SAC rank in difficulty, but one that can be as effective as the S rank." Naruto simply stated, making Gurren and Karen gulp. "Don't worry, I would never use it on you too. You are far too beautiful for something as gross and atrocious." That one comment had gotten them red as tomatoes. And as for Sasuke Uchiha here, well, Karen, you can thank me later for this and the effective end to the Uchiha clan. "Oh, I'm sure I can think of more than just a few ways to thank you, cousin." Karen licked her lips seductively. "After all, they also been studying the Iryo ninjutsu, and how to prolong and enhance the act, if you know my terms. First discuss it with Kurama and others, then we can talk about it, Karen." Naruto simply stated, as he had had enough and went inside of his house, deciding to start making preparations for departure. So friends, this was episode 3 of this epic and powerful story. If you enjoyed it and want episode 4 soon, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also comment down your thoughts. Do you think Konoha is ready to face the godlike shinobi Naruto has become? I'll see you in the next episode.